talking to her. Did she like it? So it's interesting, I got this book, like when I first got on council. Yeah. And I'm like, right here. So it's like, I think it'll just be a year's worth.
A year,
I mean, 2 years worth.
Well,
like
that's
a
why,
term for it.
like, the idea is to
yeah.
float it
Well,
with the council.
a half term.
To get
You'll get 4 next time.
To pair this, yeah, like to do another.
How could you not? I mean, there's three seats open. There's 2 and then 1.
Audio's up, just so you know.
Can't ever count on anything.
Okay,
All right, fine, come in second,
right.
we're still good for you.
we got Mary Ann back in the mix.
Yep.
All right, so welcome everyone. We've already started our meeting. We just came out of executive session, and I want to welcome everyone to the November 4th, 2019 regular council meeting. And with that, I think we're going to run right into announcements. So do we have any?
Yes,
All right.
I have 2. So one of the announcements comes from one of the communications we got from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They are having a special showing of a movie on Saturday, November 9th at the Little Art at 12:30. The movie is called Almost Sunrise, and it follows 2 Iraq vets who had difficulty coming back into civilian life, I guess you would say, and walked across much of the United States. And as I read about the movie, it just seemed like it would be a really great movie to see. So that's Saturday, November 9th at the Little Art. And then the other announcement is that the village is going to be hosting a community meeting, town hall, on the work that we have been doing, that our Environmental Commission and our Vernay team has been working on regarding the contamination at the Vernay site, the work that's being proposed by the EPA to remediate this site. And the goal is to provide some more information for our residents so that they can understand what is a lot of technical issues, and when you don't understand it, it can get pretty scary, and sometimes when you do understand it, it can be scary. But at any rate, there'll be information that we'll be letting people know about, and also having time for people to address their concerns and their ideas. And so that will be Thursday, November 21st at 5 p.m., from 5 to 7 p.m. in rooms A and B.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other announcements?
Get out the vote tomorrow.
Yes, that was on my list. And, I just wanted to also highlight, and it's in the packet, we had a really exciting opportunity on Saturday to host 5 transportation and community development professionals from Russia. So they got to see our temporary transportation project, which I know there's mixed feelings about, but they had lots of questions. And they also got to tour the brewery, and it was really exciting because otherwise they were seeing, sprawl in Greene County and Montgomery County. So it was neat for them to see, what a village looks like and how a thriving downtown operates. So it was really great to have that opportunity. And the other thing is, I thought maybe we could talk about the Citizens Climate Lobby and the great presentation we had on Friday. And also, council, what's at your table. So.
I'm Martha Klein, and I represent the Clark County Citizens Climate Lobby. As Brian said, we had a meeting co-sponsored by the Tecumseh Land Trust at the Glen Helen Building. And I wanted to thank Brian for attending that. He was an important participant. We had really good participation from Yellow Springs residents, and there is a lot of interest in starting a chapter in Yellow Springs. The Citizens Climate Lobby does a lot of different things, but one of the main things they do is lobby for legislation in Congress to combat climate change. There is a bill presently in Congress, moving rather slowly, but it is based on a tax, a carbon tax, and a dividend. The money from the tax that the corporations that are creating carbon pay a tax on that carbon, and the money from that tax goes back to all the citizens of the country. And the idea is that, yes, putting a tax on carbon will raise prices for us, but we get the dividend then that helps us with that increase, and it very much encourages these companies, because they don't want to pay this tax, to switch over to renewables. So that's the basic idea of the law. It is in Congress, and the Citizens Climate Lobby works to move that through Congress and get our Congress people to support that. So one of the resources we use when we lobby is to have endorsements from local governments. So I understand, I think Brian at one point, maybe next meeting or so, is going to bring that up with the possibility of the council endorsing this law, and then that's a resource that can be taken when we do lobby, like Mike Turner or any of the Congress people. Well, we have this endorsement from one of the local governments in your district. So the Clark County group has a lot of resources ready to support you, information to share with you. Brian got a lot of good information when he attended. We do have a climate scientist in our group, and so we would really offer you any of our resources, any of our personnel, to give you information and support you in making this decision, and support Yellow Springs in starting its own chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Martha. Yeah, and so related to that, I would encourage council to read, what's at the table for next meeting, and I feel like it's, well in line with our village values to endorse this bill. It's pretty amazing. The other thing is, you can go to the Citizen Climate Lobby, just Google it, and it's got some really good information about the three legs of the stool. But as Martha said, the piece about the carbon dividend is designed to make lower and middle income folks whole in terms of like the greater expense. So it's a pretty smart bill. Thanks, Martha. Okay, any other announcements? All right, we got the consent agenda, which is our minutes from the last meeting, October 21st. So I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Review of the agenda. Anything we need to change or add?
I have something to add
Okay.
to new business, the Village Manager Personnel Committee.
Okay. Personnel Committee. So is this, okay. know
I
what
just want to
this
give a
is.
little
Right, this is
update
the,
on something that has happened since I've been away and back. And
this is the ad hoc, yeah, got it.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
I'm going to request that council pass a resolution, and I have it in the packet, so maybe we could put that under new business as well.
Okay. So that's the resolution related to the home rule
Yes, opposing Bill 242.
about plastics.
Yes.
Yes.
Particularly about that, but I think it has larger implications.
Okay. And do we actually, so this is a discussion to bring a resolution, is that
Yes.
right? Okay, good. Anything else? Okay, great. Mary Ann, petitions and communications.
Okay, we had a communication from Emily Seibel supporting the dog park project concept. We had a communication from Mariah Johnston with a concern about congestion around where she lives on South Walnut Street. Communication from Dan Kerrigan primarily about the concept of the Dayton Street bike path grant, but more generally about the active transportation plan, which he would like scrapped, I guess. Then we had 3 communications opposing the temporary changes at Walnut Street, Short Street, and Limestone, one from Rebecca Mark, one from Catherine Vanderheiden, and one from Donna Caslin. Then I submitted an article from the Miami group of Sierra Club regarding this trying to take away parts, chip away at home rule by our Ohio lawmakers, which I'll talk about later. The NAMI newsletter, and Brian, you had the announcement of the World Leadership Center activities that happened on Saturday.
That's right.
And I don't know if you wanted to, or you, I guess you.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was just amazing to have those folks here, and it really like highlighted our welcoming community value, and yeah, I'm just glad that they got to see another aspect of our county. Okay, so we've got a few pieces of legislation. The first one is Resolution 2019-47, and Judy, I think we should read that in full.
We usually do. Here we go.
Yes.
This is approving the annual distribution of flour and sugar to village widows and widowers. Whereas Wheeling Gaunt, who was born into slavery in about 1815, did through his own wit and will purchase his own freedom, as well as that of his wife and a friend, and did therefore make his way to Yellow Springs, Ohio in the early 1860s, where he became a successful and respected member of the village. And whereas Mr. Gaunt, at his passing in 1894, left in his will a bequest that the, quote, poor and worthy widows of Yellow Springs, regardless of their race, be given 25 pounds of flour during the Christmas season, this purchase to be made from the sale of crops grown on what is now Gaunt Park. And whereas residents of Yellow Springs to this day enjoy the benefits of Gaunt Park as a result of the generosity of Wheeling Gaunt, and whereas as a nod to the changing time, Mr. Gaunt's bequest has over the years been amended to offer 5 pounds of flour and 5 pounds of sugar to both widows and widowers, all of whom are considered worthy. And whereas as the holiday season approaches and we think of ways we can share our love and concern for all members of this community, it is fitting that we honor the memory of Wheeling Gaunt and the spirit of his gift in the manner he intended. Now therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that, Section 1, the village manager is hereby authorized and directed to procure the traditional supplies and distribute them as stipulated in the deed for Gaunt Park and as expanded by council in 2012. Section 2, the expenditure of up to $3,000 from the Widows Fund, number 902-1703-54102, is hereby authorized as provided in the village's annual appropriations.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, I just want to say we're all familiar with this amazing legacy that we continue, and even though the funds allocated, were spent, that it's something that the village is dedicated to supporting, and we appreciate villagers that support that fund as well. Johnny, one thing I wanted to check on: did Jerome Borchers get in contact with you about possibly promoting the Wheeling Gaunt sculpture with? Okay, so remind me to connect you guys, because he had an idea that with the bronze sculpture project coming up, that it might be nice to tie those together, those deliveries with sort of promoting that project. So we'll talk about that. Any other questions or comments? All right, Laura?
Thanks for giving me the time. As a beneficiary of that fund for 5 years since my husband passed, I very much appreciate it. However, I usually end up taking it to the food pantry drop-off. Is there a way for people who feel others might need it more to like get you our names and have it delivered directly? I don't know if that's too much of a pain or not, but it's just a question I had.
If they choose to donate it, we take it to the food pantry ourselves.
Excellent.
We can know that ahead of time.
But I mean, instead of, can we just email Johnny, I
They can
guess?
send it to Ruth Ann.
Yep, okay, so we'll connect with Ruth Ann, yeah, and we can put that out there too, so that's great, all right. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Of course not, all right. Resolution 2019-48, Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is approving check signing privileges for West Banco Bank general checking and guaranteed deposits.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, Josue.
Thank you, Brian. Over the last 2 months, in an effort to reduce the village banking fees and expenses, the finance director and I have done an analysis and cost comparison of banking services and fees. By changing our banking services, the village should save about $9,000 annually. I'm going to put in a note on this. On this savings, currently, our accounts at our current bank, we get credit towards our accounts, and that counts towards our fees. So we will be able to generate $9,000, which is a form of a savings that we will be creating by changing our banking account services. As a result of this comparison, based upon significant reduced fee structure, I'm requesting authorization from council to establish operating checking accounts and money market accounts with West Banco and to approve signing privileges at West Banco for the treasurer, finance director, public works director, and myself, the village manager.
And Colleen, can you remind us, how much do we typically carry in our account for operations? About $1 million or?
It's about 2.1.
Okay, thanks. And I bring that up because since I've been on council, it's now been 6 years, I've been a little bit frustrated that we have to pay for that amount of money to be in a bank account. And so I really appreciate Josue and Colleen looking into this, the finance committee, it was one of our directives, and you know, whatever we can do to get another section of sidewalk is what we need. So,
Yes, and to highlight some of the details of what will become our new banking service, we are only required to keep $10,000 in these checking accounts. Everything else, we can keep it in whatever accounts, interest-bearing accounts we want, but we will keep them as money market accounts within this new banking institution. That will allow us to transfer money within the bank in minutes.
great. All right.
I also appreciate that West Banco is a regional bank. I mean, it's definitely larger than Yellow Springs, but it's not a national bank.
Yep, yep. Okay, any questions or comments? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, good work, guys.
Thank you.
All right, last is resolution, one that's dear to my heart, 2019-49. Yeah, Judy, can I read that one?
You bet.
Okay, you have a copy? Thank you. All right, you know, I'm, not as good on the packet. So I just want to say, we had a really great celebration of Susie Yant on Friday, and yeah, she's been an amazing part of our team. So, Resolution 2019-49 is declaring Tuesday, tomorrow, November 5th, 2019, Susie Yant Day in the village of Yellow Springs. Whereas Susie Yant started her village career in 1994 as a utility billing clerk, and in 2007 became the accounts payable payroll technician for the village. And whereas in those 25 years, Susie has performed her work with dedication, humor, and diligent attention to detail. And whereas Susie has been a legend among village staff for her exceptional and lovingly crafted celebration cakes, generously gifted on many occasions, and whereas Susie has earned her place in our hearts through her generosity, her hard work, her quick laugh, and her loyalty to the village and to her co-workers, now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, November 5th, 2019, shall be recognized as Susie Yant Day in the village of Yellow Springs and is intended as a day of celebration and joy. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I ask for a motion? I did not. Can I get a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna move into special reports, and we're happy to have Major Kurt Keller here to talk about the upcoming levy for the new Greene County Jail. And so we'd love to have you come to the podium.
I'm
probably more adept at answering questions, but I'll tell you what the plans are at this point. This coming Thursday, I believe it's at 1:30, and then the following Thursday at 6:30, there are open public sessions at the commission where the sheriff will be discussing more about the proposed 1/4% sales tax. But we have been, and I'll tell you honestly, I've been at the sheriff's office almost 30 years, over half my career in corrections. And for probably the last 5 or 6 years, I've been pleading that we need new facilities. We need a new structure to help with the inmates that we have, to provide program, to provide education. The current downtown jail is 50 years old, and it is literally falling in on itself. I've given several residents from Yellow Springs tours through the facility, met with them over the last couple of years. And we are finally to the point over the last year and a half, 2 years, where, at least personally, I've got the commissioners and those that make the decisions moving forward that they know we have to have a new facility. They did a needs assessment last year. The needs assessment, in summary, said the downtown facility has got to be replaced. We have to have a new facility. In those that I've met with in my planning, it's not about just having a new facility and more beds. It's about having the right facility and helping people. So we've moved forward with that concept, and as we've talked about it with the commissioners and with the sheriff's idea was, instead of taxing the people more through property tax, because Greene County has not increased its sales tax, to pay for the facility through a 1/4% increase in the sales tax. What that means to the citizens of Greene County is every $100 spent, there's a 1/4 that is from that $100 to pay for the new facility. The commissioners and their legal through prosecutor's office is writing the draft for this so that the sales tax will be increased until the facility is paid for. We estimate, and there's no way to know specifically, but when I look at the inmate population and we look at what we know of the sales tax that's already spent in Greene County, we're estimating a minimum of 30%, upwards of 50% of that sales tax will be paid for people coming into Greene County spending money. So for that $100 spent, 25%, 30 to 50% of that's coming from outside the county of people coming. So that helps the folks of Greene County that it's not just their money, but others coming. And then that will be eliminated once the facility is paid for. I could talk a lot and could answer questions about what we're planning, what kind of facility we're planning, but the needs assessment gave 4 options. The sheriff would like to go with the option that calls for 500 beds. Currently, we have a potential inmate population of 382. However, we only, our average daily population over the last several years is average of 321. So we don't fill the beds we have, and building this facility will not fill the beds that we have, but what we have a need for is space for programming, space to be able to effectively classify inmates. Right now, we do not have the space we need to classify inmates appropriately. So for all the different types of people that we are responsible to house, vulnerable populations, those that are minor offenses that have to come to jail, to predators and others, we don't have the space to adequately classify and keep different housing locations for different types of inmates. That's a big problem. Programming space, we just don't have it. In the downtown facility, 146 inmates, we have one classroom. It's an old-style linear facility, and by linear, I mean it's a 3-story facility. It's the worst thing you could imagine, watching television, seeing concrete and steel bars. It's just old school. And the newer facility that was built in 2000 is antiquated ideology for managing inmates. You have four pods. 3 pods house 60 inmates each. There's not a lot you can do in interaction and communication with 60 inmates in a pod. We would like in the new facility to reduce the size of that, have smaller populations that we can work with and classify by types for needs, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, the different needs, working together with different counselors. So that's some of our thinking in the new facility, how we'd like to design it. But the bottom line is, for the taxpayers, it's not a property tax. It's not going to, be levied against their property and their homes as most buildings are paid for. This is a sales tax increase that Greene County hasn't done, as opposed to all the other counties around us. But we would like to increase that. The state government allows for more of an increase. We just like a 25% sales tax increase. And the statute is going to be written so that when that debt is retired, and we're estimating approximately 10 years, that will go away. So I'm happy to answer. I'm better at answering questions, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
But that was a good overview.
It
Thanks,
was.
Major Keller.
Yeah, you just answered
yeah.
my question, which was going to be how long. So 10 years, and that's much shorter than I anticipated.
Yeah, it's a guess right now as how much revenue will be generated from county residents versus out-of-county residents. I've done a study over the last few weeks as to our inmate population. How many inmates do we have from Greene County as opposed to outside of Greene County? Average, about 50%, which amazed me. I thought we'd have probably 80% Greene County. 50% are outside of Greene County, with the Fairfield Commons, the Greene, bordering Montgomery County, Warren County. There's a lot of people that come into Greene County to shop. Yellow Springs alone. You guys have your street fairs, everybody comes. People come to shop in Greene County. So I don't know what that amount is. I just know the citizens, 25%, will be a lot less because of those coming in. Is that 30, 40, 50%? I don't know. I don't know that there's any way to know. But the way that we look at that is, for every $1,000 spent, you're paying $2.50. And over a course of 10 years, we can realize that debt. We're guessing, hold me to it, but I'm about $7 million a year. So within a matter of about 10 years, we can take care of that debt, and then it goes away. And the language is going to be written, so it's done after that building is built.
Mary Ann?
So are you saying you're anticipating it would cost $70 million?
And that includes, the facility itself won't cost $70 million, but that includes the interest over those 10 years. That's everything. Approximately
So
$70
my
million.
question was, what additional services would you anticipate would be located in a new building? And do you have the staff and capacity to provide them?
Excellent question. Right now, one of the things that I wrestle with is I have 2 facilities to manage. in Greene County. We have 2 facilities. And that's only because of, I think if we could have planned better over the years, there's no reason we need 2 facilities. We have a 50-year-old facility, and we have a 20-year-old facility that was slated for 15 years. Well, it's now 20 years old. And based on ideology of managing populations and helping people, the direct supervision that we have right now in the 4 pods in our adult detention center, it doesn't work. I was a school teacher before I ever got involved in this career. And I'm telling you, that education doesn't work with 60 people and 1 officer. You're not helping anybody. With the new facility, it's designed for smaller units, classrooms. I've had a group that's wanted to come for the last 3 or 4 years to help me with yoga for those who have PTSD. I don't have anywhere to do that. I can't do it. And I just told them, just hold on. Someday we'll do it. One of the greatest programs I have right now is sitting here to my left. And we could do so much more. The facilities are outdated and I have nowhere to do it. So that's a driving force for me behind this. I hear a lot of people say, well, you build 500 beds, you're going to fill them. Well, my answer is, I have 382 beds now. I don't fill them. My average population is 321. I don't fill them. It's not about the bed space, it's about the bed design. And when I was talking to Jonathan earlier this week, when we were understaffed, we just didn't have the staff, we had one of our pods that was closed. We opened that pod, but while it was closed, Jonathan was able to do his story chain in that pod. Now he can't do that. Even though that pod's not full, we have bed space in there, but he's reduced to having it in another area that is not conducive to a real good programming environment. So that's really what it's about. It's creating the right space. And I mean, the needs assessment's already done. We have to have a new facility. The question is not if we're going to build something, it's what we're going to build, how we're going to build it. And the staff that I have managing 2 facilities, I don't need more staff because we're going to consolidate into 1 facility. So I don't need more staff. I just need the right space.
So my question was kind of related to what you said a few seconds ago. Why not do something like 350 beds and then more space that's conducive to programming like Story Chain or
Right.
Other things?
Part of the space is going to be for programming. In other words, he worked in a pod where there could have been housing, but there wasn't. To help you, because you don't work in the corrections field, and a lot of the state minimum standards that I have to abide by deal with classification. I have to have space for classifying inmates and keeping them safe, keeping them classified appropriately. I really don't have that now. We do the best we can with it. But I have predators in with folks that may just be there a couple days. But even for those 2 days, I don't want them near my predators. But I don't have space to classify and separate. That's one issue. The second issue is we want to build this facility at least 40 to 50 years out. And so by doing this, obviously we're not using all the beds we have now. We won't use the beds in a new facility for housing, but we'll use it for programming. We'll use it for classification. We'll use it for separation. For instance, right now, if I need to clean an area, if I need to have empty space to clean an area, to paint it, to refresh it, I don't have anywhere to take the people that are in there to move them to do that. I just don't have that flexibility. So that's a part of it. And the difference between, say, our max population could be 382 now. We're only asking for 100, math was never my forte, but 500, 382 to 500. We're only asking,
118,
yeah. So all we're asking really is separation, because we're not going to have any other 60 people pods. We're going to have 12 to 32. 32 people that you can work with, that you can have programming with those folks. So it's about design, and it's about designing for the next 50 years. So.
Okay. Other questions from council?
I guess I'll take a minute. You know, here in Yellow Springs, we know about crumbling buildings, and most recently, this past year, we had a school levy fail. And, you know, the schools are somewhat, sounds like what you described, your facility is in. And so now the schools are trying to come up with like a Plan B. So what does your Plan B look like?
I'm the jail administrator, I'm not the planner, so I don't know what the Plan B is. What I do know is, I have what used to be the Sally Port, which is where the police departments would pull in with their cruisers, with their prisoner. That floor is crumbling. It's held up by posts on the bottom. I can't use that anymore. The infrastructure of that facility, it's falling apart. And similar to your schools, but for this type of facility where it's 24/7, I have folks in there all the time, and a lot of residents that don't want to be there. So sometimes they will create episodes, they'll create flooding, they'll do things. The infrastructure of that facility can't handle it. And the needs assessment that the commissioners spent money on to say, hey, do we even need a new facility? It came back, hands down, we've got to have a new facility. The grand juries that are made up of folks like yourself that come through and survey the jails and do an inspection on my jails. Just regular citizens come through. The last grand jury reports I got from last month, you better get a new facility. You've got to have a new facility. So the question is, we've got to have it. I'm hoping that it can go through with this 25% sales tax, because nobody's really going to notice that. 25 cents on $100, they're not going to notice it. If that is voted down at the ballot, commissioners know they still have to build a facility. What's that going to cost now?
I see. Thank you.
So my Plan B is to stick with Plan A.
I hear you. Thank you.
I'm just the messenger.
Major Keller, you
Yes, sir.
mentioned earlier that the size, a significant portion of the population is out of the county.
Yes.
What is the financial impact of having 50% of the inmates from out of county?
Well, actually, yeah, I wasn't clear about that. Was that like,
That's a good question.
was that shoppers or was that
No.
inmates?
No. That,
Well, there's
because
no office
I
shop.
don't know, that's a good question. Yosu?
Josue.
Josue, that's what I said. Josue. Just pay attention. Josue. I'm learning.
You got it.
That was kind of analogous, because I don't know how many people come into Greene County to shop. The best guesstimate for me is 30, 40, 50%. We'll know better as we continue this process and study it. But I know that 50% of my inmates are from outside the county. That's not saying that 50% paid for items and 50% stole them, and so they wound up in my jail. I don't know. I just know that we have a good influx of folks that come into Greene County because of Fairfield Commons Mall, because of the Green, and I mentioned Yellow Springs because it's notorious. Whenever you guys have a festival, I know people come into Yellow Springs to shop. I don't know how many people come into Greene County to shop. But for me, as a citizen, a resident, 25% for every $100, well, that's on me. But that's also offset by all those coming into Greene County to shop. So I'm not going to say we're not going to notice that 0.25%, but it will be offset by others coming into Greene County to shop.
Would you say that by Greene County housing those inmates from other counties, do we make money or do we lose money?
Good question. We don't house from other counties for a couple reasons. Number one, the downtown Greene County Jail has been under a consent decree since 1989. The Honorable Judge Rice, in a class action lawsuit against Greene County for overpopulation. Ray Matta versus Bobby Jones. Go research that. In less than 20 years, because that facility that was built was not built sufficiently, it was overpopulated, not good ventilation, recreation space, class action lawsuit. Greene County lost that lawsuit. We've been under a class action lawsuit since 1989. As a result, the population of the downtown jail is 146. When number 147 comes through the door, we have to let one out. And so that's been constant since 1989. Depending upon the justice and the judicial system in Greene County, when I was a sergeant in the jail, we were early releasing 1/3 of the inmate population. Back then, in 2007, 2008, we would have an incoming of around 6,000 to 7,000 inmates. And we were releasing 2,000 inmates a year. Because of bond reform and what I consider a good judicial system in Greene County now, where we're not putting people in jail that don't need to be in jail, our annual intake is about 4,000, 4,500. And so we're seeing less early releases. However, when we build a new facility, not only do I not think we're going to fill the beds we have, but there is no longer a consent decree from Ray Matta versus Bobby Jones. We can't take in other counties' inmates because we don't have the space to do it. Could we make money doing that? Sure, because it's probably on average about $60 per diem for inmates that we would house from other places. The flip side of that is, if we ever have to house our inmates in other facilities, it's going to cost Greene County that average of $60 per inmate per day. The reason we don't deal with that right now is because of Judge Rice and Ray Matta versus Jones. We release them. Otherwise, we would have to keep them. We don't have, if somebody brings the sheriff an inmate, sheriff can't just say, well, we're going to let you go. We can do that now because of the consent decree. We can't do that down the road. So we have to build the appropriate facility in case that would happen.
Okay, any questions or comments from citizens? Laura?
What percentage of the population are there due to just ordinary drug and alcohol addiction?
Define ordinary.
Well, they're not dealing, they're not selling a lot, they may sell for personal habit, they're not committing violent crimes, they need treatment versus held in the jail.
I'm going to say a very low percentage, only because I know what I have in my jail right now. Greene County is not the image of what's happening nationally. You see what's getting ready to happen in New York and in, what's the other state, Oklahoma, where they're getting ready to reach 900 inmates in New York, 400 in Oklahoma. Missouri? Oklahoma is the other state, 400 in Oklahoma, 900 in New York. Greene County is ahead of the curve on bond reform and on not housing people that don't need to be in jail. I know that because of what I've done over half of my career there. We have judges in Greene County that understand this process. I was able to attend the first bond reform conference at the Supreme Court this past year, invited by one of the judges, because bond reform's real. Most cities have not caught up to this yet, but we don't need people in jail that don't need to be in jail. And so to answer your question, I don't have a specific number for you, but we don't have people in jail that got picked up for a small amount of drugs or marijuana or things like that. We have people in jail that need to be there because, and here's where bond reform is, they are a danger to society. And so they need to be put in jail. But I don't have a specific number for you.
Kind of a follow-up to that regarding bond reform, how many people are there because they can't post $100, $200, $300?
I don't have.
Not too many. I mean, I've seen,
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer, I've sat there and watched it happen.
Sure.
And it makes me insane.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the whole reason for the bond reform movement that is coming across the country right now. And our judges are on the forefront of that.
What percentage are in the jail using up beds at taxpayer expense because they can't post $100?
Yeah, I don't have a number for you for that.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Major Keller. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you, Major.
Yep,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
Do I give an advertisement?
Yeah, you should.
Oh, you're the man.
Okay.
Story chain.
You weren't gonna say anything, Jonathan?
Well, sure. Thank you. I think getting to jail is a great idea, because it would give more room for my program. And Major Keller also oversees an amazing drug reform program called Greenleaf, which I think is absolutely incredible. There's five part-time facilitators that work there, and they do an incredible job, even though they make a whole lot of money doing it. I say that very sarcastically. They are the most dedicated team I have ever met, and Story Chain would not exist without the rehab program. Story Chain wants to go to other counties, but we can't do it by just going into a jail. We have to go inside a rehab program, and there are very few county jails that have a rehab program. Most rehab programs are in prisons, prison facilities, because they're there longer. But because jails have kind of become the new prisons, because people are there for so long for whatever reason, we want to do something for them. We want to give them an opportunity to do that. And that's why Story Chain is so popular, because we give them a chance to read to their kids. And we record those recordings. Brian, you experienced firsthand at DCI a couple years ago. The inmates really, really love it. They love doing it. When I go into the jail, they stand up and cheer. I know I'm a popular guy, but I ain't that popular. They just love it. They die for it. They really get into it. It's something they really strive to achieve, because it's all about the elocution of the voice, reading out loud. It's not their own work. It's published material. And they read it out loud over and over and over again. So it's my theater background, and it's something they all really appreciate, because they want the child to get their voice into the head of their child. A little redundant, but yeah, I think, and I can only reach 20 people at a time. If we had a bigger jail, we could probably reach 40 people, or do 2 programs at the same time. And then we'd have the space to do it. So, yes, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And I do love that Story Chain program. All right, well, thanks again. And we are going to move into citizen concerns. So this is the time on the agenda where if you have any comments about anything that's not specifically listed on the agenda, we welcome those and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any citizen concerns? Eric Clark?
Hello, my name is Eric Clark. I'm a 57-year citizen of Yellow Springs, most of which has been in the same neighborhood. And one of the things I wanted to just talk about just for a moment were some observations that I had about the new traffic pattern. I want to, first of all, clarify, because some people on the open discussion pages with Facebook were wondering if I was some sort of a part of a committee or if I had been hired or was paid. And I just wanted to mention that, no, I'm not. And everything that I've done has just been more or less on my own interest so that I could pass on information to others who might be interested. So, yes, it has been me sitting there at the corner, sitting on the bench and taking little short videos of everybody doing their funny little loop-de-loos and other shenanigans around those barricades and such. So I just wanted to mention for the record that I'm not paid or anything. But I did want to make a note that I think that with that survey that's going on, I think that also somebody should maybe download all of the comments that have been made specifically on the open discussion page, and I think I posted on the YS Schools Talk, because I think that those comments should be taken into consideration. They've been, in my opinion, amazingly tame for the open discussion pages. I know I've gone back and forth a few times with a few other people, but decided I think I'm just going to post the videos. So what I did was I went out there and I spent over a period of different days and different times of day to kind of get a feel for the traffic patterns that are there, because sometimes when you see something all the time, you don't really notice it as much as when you then sit down and actually do a count. And scientifically, I should say, this is what my count looks like. It's just on these sticky notes, and I make a note of how many people were good boys and girls and made the proper turns where they're supposed to. The other people that thought they were square dancing and did their little do-si-dos around the barricades, but also found an unfortunately large number of people who have decided to make the left turn onto Xenia Avenue anyway, and those from Xenia Avenue who seemed a tad confused and would go left of the barricade. And so I just made some basic statistics. I was not doing anything to shame anybody. It really was just to look. You would not believe how many videos I deleted because I could actually see somebody's face or a clear license plate or something like that. So I've tried to keep it as tame as I could. I wanted to also mention that when I look at highway department statistics, and they look at, well, 1 in a million cars has done something illegal on this highway or this busy road, uh-oh, I'm out. But this is more of a 50%, and that's really high. And I also want to mention that if we really want to make this experiment useful, I think that other traffic patterns should be considered. One of them that I thought was reverse the flow. It just seems like water flows downhill in Yellow Springs very well. So if you had the traffic pattern just reversed, still kept that school drop-off and everything, you could completely eliminate those barricades forever. Never have to worry about snow plows hitting them, people hitting them left of center, driving around, turning around in people's driveways, Pepsi trucks going around the block, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that out. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And
Eric.
good luck
Eric, thank you.
tomorrow for those of you who are
Thanks.
re-upping.
Eric, I have a question.
Yeah.
Of those numbers, how many cars did you count breaking the rules there?
Well, let's see, on this one particular note that I brought, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 31 people were okay. U-turned right there in the road, 14 of them, of which about 6 of those actually had to do it as a 3-point turn. Their vehicle was so large that they couldn't get around it. In the meantime, then the traffic backs up behind them as they try and figure out what to do. I've straightened out the barricades twice when people have hit them. U-turns in the driveway. There's usually a scattering of them, so it's either right there on the corner or at the Morgan House and a few in the Lapides driveway. I have videos of 2 or 3 people who have gone left of the blockade. They come from behind me, so my reaction time isn't as good. And then on this last day that I did it, it was just so cold, I finally gave up after 45 minutes. But I thought it was funny when the people noticed I had the camera, they changed their mind.
Nice, all right. Yeah, that's a good bit of insight. Thanks, Eric.
All right.
I do also want to say that any permanent solution would not be those ugly plastic barricades, but, you know, anyway, we'll see what happens. Yes, come on up.
I'm Luan Height. I live on North Park Place, which is the north end of town. And I'm going to also talk about the change in the traffic patterns. I go from the north end of town to the south end of town to the Wellness Center at Antioch College practically every day. And so generally I would come across Dayton Street, hit South Walnut, and turn left onto Limestone and right onto Xenia Avenue, then left onto Davis Street to get over to Livermore. So I've had to totally change my pattern of driving over there. When I'm on my bicycle, I feel like I'm less safe going farther. It's taking me longer, for one thing. I am going in front of your house every day, even though you don't notice, apparently.
How'd it work? Oh, your house, okay.
Yeah, because you mentioned in the
Yes,
in the
I sit
interview
my
in the
living room
newspaper
and look
that
out.
you hadn't noticed any extra
Yes,
traffic in front of your
there is,
house, but
there
there is, let me tell you.
There is.
Okay, well,
I'm one of them.
Me
Okay.
too.
But to me, it's costing me more time, more fuel, because I hit more stop signs, more stops and starts, costs more fuel. And I feel unsafe when I'm on my bicycle, having to go extra streets. And then coming back, I can't turn onto South Walnut, so I have to go to Short Street, which means I'm driving through more congestion downtown to get to Short Street, to turn left onto Short Street. And to me, being on my bicycle on Xenia Avenue is not pleasant. And when I'm driving, and Short Street is set up so crazy. I mean, people are generally, we drive on the right side of the road, but on Short Street, you have to drive on the left side of the road. Same with Walnut, but Walnut's a wider street, so it seems more, it doesn't seem as unnatural on Walnut, but and by the way, I haven't driven on South Walnut because I can't turn left on Limestone. And I have followed the whole time, the laws. Okay, also, this was the wrong time to pull this off on us, because every time I change my traffic route, I run into people digging in the street and blocking off one of the streets that I have diverted myself to. It happened again this morning, where I was going around to get back to Xenia Avenue, and the guys had to move their backloaders so I could get down the street. The second night of this experiment, I was on Dayton Street facing west, and I had to get back to Xenia Avenue. And of course, it was new to me, so I did go down South Walnut before I realized I can't turn left on Limestone. So then I had to go all the way around the neighborhood to get back onto Xenia Avenue to go back to the place where I was trying to head to. So I don't understand the whole point of this. I've never seen any problems, and most of the people I've talked to say, everybody I've talked to about it, and I've talked to a lot of people, say they've never seen a problem with people turning left onto Limestone from South College. So
Yeah, it's 3 minutes.
finally, yeah, I know. I think the school district should take care of this by cutting a U-shaped driveway in front of Mills Lawn. There's plenty of lawn. It's called Mills Lawn because there's a lot of lawn there. And why should we have to divert all the traffic from the whole citizenship to accommodate the couple of maybe half-hour times in morning and evening or afternoon when there's drop-off and pickup? To me, it doesn't make sense to have to do that. So that's my time.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Luan. Megan, did I see a hand up?
Megan Bachman, Yellow Springs News. I'm just kind of following up with what Erica was saying. I think the last council meeting was the first day of the experiment, so there was talk about certain kinds of data that was going to be gathered and observations. So I'm just curious what the village has done to gather data about the usage of the streets.
You may know that there's a survey out. As of Thursday, we did looking at the count of submissions, we had over 280. So that's one of the data points, or one of many data points, because there's 12 questions in there, along with comment sessions. In addition to that, we've done observational studies similar to Eric, what he's done, counting cars, how many there are backups, how many turned, in what direction. So we've done some of those observational studies. I think just last week I was out there with Johnny and Police Chief Carlson doing counting ourselves. So we are continually counting.
Are you counting cars and at different times of day?
Yes, the times that we've done the observations have been different times. Some peak, some been off peak.
And there'll be a report or something about those observations?
Well, there's some of it is, because of the correlation of data, there isn't necessarily a statistical analysis that we can do because the data has varied. So we're using that to inform some of the decisions, just to monitor traffic pattern and changes. So I don't know if we will have enough data points to come up with some sound statistical analysis, but we will have a general idea of how traffic has changed over time. And, the first week, I think in one of Eric's videos I saw, I counted over 13 cars just in those videos. So the pattern is changing over time. The first week, there's somewhat chaotic behavior because folks are adapting to it. I think as we see the traffic now this week, it's going to be different from what it was the first week. So we're looking at that traffic change just to monitor the difference. Could we make a statistical analysis? I think that's going to be challenging with that data. Certainly from the survey, we have enough data that we could do some statistical analysis of that data.
Will the results of the survey be published somewhere?
Yes.
Can you estimate the amount of time you've spent observing?
Okay, so just so, I'll just repeat the question since no one's coming to the mic. So one was, are we gonna publish the analysis? Yes. And then Megan's question was, can you estimate how much time we've spent, I guess, on the project in general? Is that?
The question is about the time you spent making these observations and traffic counts.
I couldn't tell you
Estimate.
right now.
Okay, any other citizen concerns? Laura?
Well, since we're talking about traffic, I felt a great sense of loss because I feel like Walnut's pretty much lost to me. Like I've just stopped using it. And I used to use it all the time because it doesn't help me anymore. Because where I usually would take it from north to south, I can't do the left turn and have to go around by Mary Ann's house, so
I'll
I
have
just
coffee
stopped.
for you
I
next
just
time.
stopped. And it takes too much, I agree with everything Lauren said, it just takes too much of my time, et cetera. And also on biking, I would always bike from south to north. Well, now I can't do that because it's illegal. I'd be going against traffic. I might end up in jail and I wouldn't have $100. So, yeah, to get out. I'd have good representation, maybe. But
And some flour and sugar.
anyway, and some flour and sugar. But that's one thing. The other thing, I hope the sheriff will, back to the jail, will talk about, there's become more awareness in society about mass incarceration. Antioch College had a terrific traveling exhibit, I think, about a year ago? Kevin, you might remember, the World House Choir was there. Anyway, obviously, the United States, compared to other countries, we incarcerate huge numbers of our people compared to any other society. And can we stop that here in Greene County? Can we take measures to keep people who need treatment going to beefing up money, going to TCN to get them in a program, not necessarily behind the four walls of a jail? Can we get the people out who don't really need to be in there because they're poor? And there are communities that they raise money to get moms out of jail, for example, who can't raise $500. So I'm just, and I get that you have to build for the next 30, 40, 50 years in mind. However, I think since we're already today incarcerating some huge percentage more of our population than any other country in the world, why can't we envision a future where we need fewer beds rather than more? And also, taxpayers, quite honestly, are really pressed, and that was the point Lisa was trying to make. We didn't pass a bond levy to build new schools. We don't particularly want to build more jail beds. I've been in that jail a lot. One of my questions for the commissioners is, again, I don't think defendants are getting good service, because I've been in those rooms where attorneys have to talk to their clients. There's no privacy. That's a horrible, you got the highest security area there where the guys who are totally out of control are yelling and screaming. You're trying to talk to your client. It's terrible. I get it. It is terrible. Anyway, I'm just hoping for a facility that's more oriented, at least for treatment, for the people who need it, and fewer beds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. I just want to make two quick comments. One is, the full proposal around the temporary transportation project is to make accommodations for bicyclists. And that was one of the things the consultants remind me of, which is that hike bike path that would allow you to make that turn. Because remember, this is not just about the schools, this is about facilitating active transportation. And the other thing I wanted to say is I guess I'm not sure why it's such a negative to drive through our neighborhoods, because we do have such low traffic, and honestly, that's the way I drive in town. I mean, I limit my driving, but I guess I just wouldn't assume that that's such a bad thing. I like driving by Mary Ann's house. So anyway.
I like people, especially I like bicyclists.
Yes, that's the best. But anyway, appreciate the comments, and I will just underscore that, believe it or not, we really are taking in all the feedback. There's been a lot of great observations, again, whatever we do permanently, it's not going to involve ugly infrastructure. We're always going to be artistic and think about trees and all those other things, but it'll be interesting to see what the results are. Okay, I think we're going to move to old business, and Marian, I think you're going to give us an update on the Vernay
Yes.
cleanup.
So on the 24th of October, 5 representatives from US EPA from the Chicago district office came and spent 2 hours meeting with village staff and our Vernay team. And then there was a community meeting that was also a 2-hour meeting that evening in room A and B. I guess over 100 people came to that.
Right.
So I was at both meetings, and I was particularly impressed with the seriousness of the EPA representatives and their knowledge about the situation, especially in the meeting that we had in the afternoon. It was very helpful. But this is a really complicated topic, and as people know, it's been going on for 20 years, well, longer than 20 years, but it's been under orders with the EPA for about 20 years. It's very complicated. Scientists look at, depending on which group of scientists you're talking about, they're going to say one thing, and scientists, another group are going to say another thing. So just because they're scientists doesn't mean that they see things the same way. At any rate, it's complicated, it's serious. There's a lot of emotionality about it because of the history of Vernay and the importance that it had in the community, as well as then the pollution that was caused by that company. So after the 24th, our Vernay team, which includes some people from the Environmental Commission who have expertise in this area, Josue and Johnny, I'm sort of liaison with that, as well as our two consultants, have been talking and meeting, reviewing the data, and we have felt that we need to have our own meeting for the community, both to provide information so that people can just get more understanding of what is vapor intrusion, or what is the plume, or what is groundwater, or what are VOCs, to get some more basic information, then to let people know more about what the village is doing in this regard, and then to get some feedback from the community. So we're planning a meeting on the 21st, which is a Thursday, 21st of November, from 5 to 7. And I'm going to let Josue or Johnny, do either of you have anything else that you'd want to say?
Yes, you covered most of the items that were in my report. I think it's important to note what the group has done over the last couple months to prepare for the EPA meeting and to prepare for what's ahead of us. And what's ahead of us is that the EPA will complete what they're calling a statement of basis, which is an agreement on the remediation. And there's an opportunity for us as the village government and the village village to provide comments to that statement of basis, to provide feedback, and then that becomes the final agreement that the Vernay and the EPA agreed to as a remediation plan. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to raise concerns and have our input in the process. We have, as a result of the last two meetings that we've had, we determined that there's additional work that we need to do as a subcommittee and as a community to be prepared to provide the most informed comments as the EPA prepares a statement of basis. Among those things that we need to address are, Mary Ann mentioned this a bit, is that you could look at the reports and the conclusion for two groups of scientists with PhDs in several areas of work, and they disagree as to what's happening on the property. So for us, there's some work to do on what reality are we going to accept as reality, because they seem to both be founded on strong data points. So we need to make a determination as a community what makes sense for us. Now, we don't have to do that on our own. We have access to professionals. We have two volunteer consultants who are experts in their field. They're coming from University of Dayton and Rice State University. They have years of experience in the field. We also have the EPA team that's made themselves available to us to discuss the technical aspects of the work and address questions that we're unsure about. Some things they're not completely sure about how they're going to work or what needs to be addressed. So for them, they're also studying the matter to provide a complete statement of basis and a final agreement. So part of that work ahead of us is to find those differences where there are pending concerns on specific remediation activities, address concerns of infrastructure. We have utilities that run through the property, and we've had that conversation with Vernay and EPA as to how to best address those concerns. And there's also a community dialogue that needs to take place. As if you were in attendance on the 24th, you may notice that we had over 100 people. We had some overflow into this room, and there are folks that have strong feelings on both sides of the issue. The history of Vernay is intertwined with the history of Yellow Springs, and folks want recognition to that, and the contributions that Renee made to them as individuals, and to Yellow Springs as a community. And there are others that feel hurt that Renee did this, and did this to not just a select group of residents that have been affected, but the broader community. And so there's some dialogue that we need to have to bring the community together on this issue and find a productive solution moving forward. So I think those are the other items I would add. We also have proposed an agenda for the upcoming meeting on the 21st. We're looking at providing some, you want me to jump in on this, Mary Ann, or you wanna?
You can.
Okay, so we wanna provide some background information, some history on the Grenade and the historical importance to the village. We want to talk about the work of the remediation team. This is a environmental commission subcommittee, and what have we done to date? What do we need to do in the next 3 months? And the next 3 months are key because we are engaged with the EPA on scheduling that follow-up meeting in 3 months' time, because we expect to have a statement of basis completed within 3 months' time. Then we'll also want to address questions and concerns. I think there's some tangible questions and responses that we can provide. For example, we've got folks that are outside of the plume that have questions, where are they at risk, and what risk, what level of risk they are. I think that there is some certainty, as much as we can, to provide answers to folk that are outside of both the data and the model, that we don't suspect that there's potential of contamination for them. And this is based on the models that we're getting from the two teams. So I think there's concerns. Folks aren't unsure of how far the contamination spread. They want to know, is it in our drinking water? And I think we've got some good data that demonstrates the risk profile of the contaminants as it relates to our waterhead protection, and how close it is. So those are questions that we can provide some answers to, based on the data that we know and the conclusions that have been provided by the two groups of scientists. I think that covers, huh?
Okay. So do we have any questions or comments before we move into the capital budget? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you. So Colleen, I would like to invite you to the dais.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Major.
Grass, I
That
can't.
was gracious.
Keys get caught on the door.
That was gracious.
I sent this as an Excel sheet to you, so it's just prepared. It didn't work, yeah.
What are we doing?
So I finished this on Excel so I can jump on it.
Well, oh, Colleen's getting ready.
Colleen went to get something.
She's right here. She's,
Oh,
Oh, I see.
Hmm?
Keyboard.
where's this?
you wanna,
It was it ran out of battery. So I have this one on my computer.
if you wanna open your email and download the other one, I can jump on when you're done.
I'll just give it to you.
Yeah. so you
I'm
can
looking
unplug
for
it now.
that Hamilton in the head.
Thing.
No, that should be good. Okay.
I'm
Everybody
performing
ready?
in it.
I think we are.
So Johnny will be helping with the explanations on the Capitol, and I don't know if we're able to view the screen at home, but we'll start with this column, which is our 2020 capital improvement requests. The ones that are in red have been the revised amounts, like everything else. So we'll start with, Johnny, do you want to explain them, or you want me to go through each one? We're at
Okay, so it's one I got. So we have a lot of GISing stuff, so this is a continuation for the next, till 2024, going down. After we get past next year, I think we can go down to a maintenance style, just to keep adding things and keep our system updated. So I wanted to spread that cost out for a couple more years. Next change is for the roof for the pottery shop to try to get that going for end of this coming year, into the next year, to be able to split it up. It's $10,000 to redo the roof with it'll have a warranty for 10 years with the product that Maximum Roofing quoted.
And so what are we getting from the community pottery? Is it 500 a month? What is their rent?
I was gonna ask that too, I don't remember.
I don't want to quote it incorrect, so
Okay.
I can get that figure back to you.
And
It's
then what?
fairly new.
And was there another amount too that they were putting forward?
They are over the next, I think it's 3 years, they're to put, I want to say like 17,000 or something like that
Okay.
in capital improvements.
Okay. Well, so if we don't have that number tonight, let's have that for the next meeting.
Yeah, the offset would be helpful to see.
Yep.
I have that
Okay,
number
so-
for you right now. The first year lease payment is $300 monthly for a total of $3,600 annually. There's an escalation clause in there, so second year goes to $315 monthly for a total of $3,780, and then it keeps escalating, which with each subsequent year. So in year 5, they would be paying $364.65 per month for a total of $4,375.82 on year 5.
Okay. And then was there an additional amount on top of rent?
Not in the part of the lease agreement, however, there's commitment on their end to pursue grant opportunities to help offset costs whenever possible. They were looking at a matching grant that would help offset the roof cost. I have not heard any word on it.
There is a fund that Brian's referring to that they agreed to pay over the next 3 years through fundraisers and stuff like that, and I believe it was 15 or 17,000.
Okay.
I can get you that when I get into my email.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Sidewalk repairs?
Oh, let's drop down there. Did I change any of that? Cool.
Yeah, 50,000 across the board. You probably, it's easier since I'm on the computer. $50,000 for the sidewalk repairs?
Yeah, I just wanted to continue that on because we got a lot more sidewalk than $50,000 a year can repair. I can guarantee you that. We can spend that in 3 months, basically. I will say that we got phase 3 of the grinding. It's starting November 13th, just for a heads up for the West Davis, or the East Davis and Whiteman and Livermore area. They're coming in to do the last phase for this year. So we went ahead and continued on all the way to 2024. Hopefully we can get it done sooner than that, but, we don't want to try to get it all done in 1 year because it's an astronomical amount. Curb repairs the same way. Sidewalk trip hazards, I really think what would be done in 2022. Well, I know will be done because that'll be the last part of that they have done.
So is trip hazards the grinding?
Trip hazards, the grinding,
And then
correct.
the 50,000 that we allocate
It's-
is on top of that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the trip hazards can only go to 2 inches.
Yep.
So the sidewalk that you're talking to me about, I'm actually having somebody look at that on Thursday, because they can only grind, if it's over 2 inches, they can't grind it. Because the sidewalk's only 4 inches and they can't take that percentage off of there. And then there's also curbs in that section down there as well, and it is allocated at $20,000 a year.
Tony, can you talk about the alley? It's the third,
The maintenance,
yeah. I guess I'm particularly interested, what will be happening?
Okay.
And will that be helpful at all if we're
it
thinking
is
about?
helpful. Actually, Brian and I was having this conversation prior to council. We was able to get 5 alleys done this year. That's with gravel and tree trimming, bringing everything down, widening the alleys back out to 15 feet. By us being able to do that, people are starting to use the alleys to walk and ride bikes and contractors are kind of going down the back alleys. Biggest thing is we're able to get our trucks in there and start changing out poles. If you was to walk from West Davis to West Limestone, you would have had to go around the block because you couldn't get through the alley. Now you can actually drive one of the bigger trucks down there. We've changed out 2 poles on that road at this time. We've done the alley from Elm Street all the way to Whiteman. That runs between right parallel with Phillips. We have done from High Street to Xenia Avenue. There's an alley right there between, I think, Center College and it's right behind the Rails to Trails building. There's an alley that goes right up behind there. And we've done 2 other alleys. So we have some that's gravelled and we're waiting to trim them now. I went ahead and had the gravel put down before it turned cold. Now we're gonna go back through there and trim them. Biggest thing it does, Mary Ann, is it allows us to maintain them and get in there to fix our lines and help people be able to walk down the alleys, ride their bikes down the alleys, and not be walking in the middle of the street. It's a very helpful tool.
I have a question about the way the dollars are spread. So as some things I could imagine, for example, sidewalk repairs, that's a gift that keeps on giving, right? You're always going to have to be repairing some sidewalks. Sidewalks that don't need repair right now by 2023 might. So I understand that kind of set amount. But like with the bike path through town, the way that's spread across 4 years, it seems like that would be a project that would be accomplished in less than 4 years. So is that the total cost and then it's just
No.
spread, or how is?
That right there, that 25,000, will get, well, 28,000 to get you from Allen to Branham Lane is what we've done this year.
So the idea is to build
do
it
small
incrementally?
sections. Correct.
And is that, I mean, this is maybe not the conversation for this now, but is that the most cost-effective way to do it, rather than to just do it and?
Well, the problem is
And then
just to be able,
finance.
just to do it, we have so much other infrastructure that needs to
That
be
has to be done.
repaired
I see,
prior to that, so we can get sections done at a time,
I see.
and that way we can do it a little at a time.
It's helpful to know that, because it's
Correct.
not just an economic cost.
No,
It's to a dig once and a
correct.
planful development and, okay.
Correct.
Thank you, that's helpful to
Yes.
understand.
So we're trying to get some things done prior to getting a bike path done in that area.
Got it. And so
So-
only so many hours in the day.
Only so many hours in the day.
Thank you.
I think we're at the blacktop roller, shared cost, $5,000. Crack seal,
Crack seal is trying to get some of the deteriorating roads sealed up so the water and the ice and the salt don't get down in them and keep popping up. We was able to do a lot of that this year, and we're gonna continue to do it. It's cheaper to hire it out because the crack seal machine's about $65,000, and you're only gonna use it about maybe 2 weeks out of the year. So it's cheaper to have a company to come in, like Par Striping, when they're doing our striping and seal coat or the crack seal.
At one point, we were talking about, I think it was at the budget meeting, we were talking about traffic calming strategies. We were talking about having more monitoring that showed how fast people were going and potentially even auto ticketing. Where would budget for that come from? Would that be from this street fund, or would that be somewhere else?
Well, I've noticed in Xenia, I can just tell you, let me tell you a story about that. So Xenia has bought some temporary ones that they're putting in plats now. And they're only keeping them there for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then they'll move them to another plat. And it's similar to the ones that the police department's bought, that we could basically put on a temporary board. But I would think that that would come out of streets and police budget
Thank you.
as
Yeah.
general.
I just don't want to lose track of
Right,
that.
it seems like it should be shared.
Yeah.
And that does remind me, what was the conclusion about auto ticketing? Is it illegal?
It's becoming illegal in a lot of jurisdictions. So for us, it may be a short-term economic opportunity and a traffic behavior modification on highly traveled roads like Fairfield
Right.
and Dayton, but it may not be a lasting.
Right, I did not see it as an economic opportunity as much as
Yeah.
a temporary way to.
Yes, and I should clarify that economic opportunity is not for us to suddenly receive a ton of money, but it can be a self-sustaining mechanism to create the behavior
Traffic calming.
modification that we want, so
Yeah.
pairing the two together.
You know, because as I think you may recall, initially, I had a very strong reaction to that, partially because of the discussions we've had about people's inability to pay tickets.
Right.
And then you create that cycle. But on the other hand,
It's self-sustainable, it creates
if
a,
we need to change behavior and
Yeah.
people are driving too fast.
right,
And we
right,
have limited capacity to
Yeah.
monitor that.
Right.
So
right.
I would like to put that on a future agenda. Just, I'd like to understand what the parameters are around it and have a discussion.
Okay. Would you-
Particularly about the auto ticket thing.
Yes, would you be interested in hearing from a vendor? Because there's several vendors that, I was at the conference at the ICMA, and there's no shortage of vendors who are looking to sell you these technologies, and they'll pitch it and propose it as a partnership. Hey, we'll bring in this technology, we'll share some of the revenue, we'll figure out a program that works for you and that works for us so that it becomes sustainable. Would you be interested in hearing from a potential partner, or you want to look at the parameters in which a auto ticketing system will work?
I mean, to me, it falls under the category of traffic calming, of which there are different things. And I could be wrong, I guess. Well, yes, I could be wrong, definitely.
50% of the time, maybe.
I'll cop that. I'm thinking that that is part of our active transportation plan. And I'm also thinking that that's going to be coming through planning commission first.
Okay.
So I guess, because I think we made that commitment, that if council wants a particular thing to be looked at, I would suggest it sends it to planning commission to look at it.
I agree, and there may be other things that are bundled in a conversation that might not be for planning commission, that might be for the chief of police, that have to do with enforcing to the ability of the PD, enforcing parking, some of the enforcement capabilities with a limited team.
And Josue, to answer your question, I think I'd like to drill down more into the details and the parameters, and like I say, if there's a trend to make things, less palatable to people, we want to become more educated about it first. I think I'd like to exhaust that avenue before hearing from a vendor. I think we tend to get too excited.
And before sending it to planning commissions. I would imagine the first step is kind of understanding the pros and cons and if there are any legal parameters. But I am mostly interested in Dayton Street, I will say. I mean, just people do not pay attention. And, whether we get that, transportation alternative grant or not, that's 4 or 5 years down the road.
Right.
So, so I think we could start there. If we like it, we send it to planning commission, and then we talk about vendors after. So I see it like kind of a.
I think Fairfield is as important, maybe more, because it's so narrow.
Right.
No berm, so especially like for cyclists or if you're walking on the road, whereas Dayton Street, you have options.
I think we should
There's a lot more pedestrians on Dayton Street.
Yeah,
But
look-
but they're both.
look at some alternative traffic calming too, because I've read some articles about using like vegetation to calm traffic, and I believe someone mentioned that Dayton, I think it was Marianne, you mentioned that Dayton Street used to be more narrow and then it was widened, and that's really a root cause of the reason why people drive
Yeah.
so fast is that it's
Yeah.
this large thoroughfare that people, first of all, and Johnny mentioned that no one is stopping until maybe Walnut Street, maybe if they catch the red light there. So I think that those are some of the things that we need to look into as well. I live on Dayton Street, so I kind of have a particular interest in slowing Dayton Street down. I know several people who've lost pets on Dayton Street. It's one of my great fears as someone who has a dog who gets away sometimes. So I definitely think that that's something we need to look into. But also thinking about the pedestrians, children who have to cross the street live on the north side of Dayton Street to go to Mills Lawn as well. So that's another thought that I have.
Two things. I checked with Sergeant Penrod, or Sergeant Wilson, sorry. I thought I remembered to price those signs that are on Fairfield. There's one on Polecat, there's one on Corey. They're about $3,000 a piece.
Wow.
So that's how much those signs are. And I'll say, if you want a traffic calming on Dayton, I'm all for putting a temporary stop sign at King Street, because it'll slow them coming in from Dayton Street, it'll slow them going back out. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Because
And
I almost T-boned a lady there myself.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
good thinking. I mean, you know, it is the opportunity to emphasize that transportation alternatives grant is not just about a hike bike path. It's about traffic calming.
Correct.
In fact, to me, that's the more important aspect
Absolutely.
of that. Cool. So not to get off
Yep.
track.
Yeah,
but
sorry, but I
think-
just
But I think
went there.
that's good to bring up.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, curb replacement, Tony?
Yeah, I hit that one earlier. That's a minimal budget of what we really should be doing, but we can't do it all in 1 or 2 years either. Stormwater, we will be getting the report by the end of the year, but just the 6 projects that I have, that was the most important ones, we're probably over $500,000 right now. So this is not even gonna touch it. One of them on Orton Road is $175,000 to fix the flooding on Orton. We was able to, we're gonna try something on Rice to try to help down there. It was the cheapest alternative of $500, so we're gonna try it, see what happens. We have fixed the one on Wright Street, but we had to do that ourselves. We also fixed the one over on Kingsfield, which we did some in-house and some not. But that's gonna become, stormwater's gonna become a major issue the further we go. So, and we've had ideals, and we'll float them around the council and stuff. So we gotta figure out a way to address it in the most economic way. Shared cost for Sutton Farm, the Quonset hut has got a roof leak in it. Those are the ones that I showed you actually the other day when I was running. The guys were like, hey, look, a new leak. The system was put on the Quonset hut and on the electric barn probably, I'm gonna say 30 years ago. It's supposed to be redone every probably 10 years, and it's not been done. So what's happened is it's all cracking. So that's shared cost amongst all the enterprise funds that share that same Quonset hut to put a new coating over top of it to have another 15-year warranty on it. So that one there is, if we don't, what's gonna happen is water's gonna get in there, sit, and then it's gonna rust out the Quonset hut, and then we'll have other issues. This is for,
A new
I
state
put
route?
money, pardon?
Should be 68, right?
Yeah, right.
Just
Yeah, we're putting in a new street. So this is a budget that I'd like to take out of the state highway fund. This is for the flashing caution lights for pedestrian walkways. So we can get rid of the little $350 signs that get demolished like twice a week and put these on the side. When you push one, all 4 will flash. And they'll only flash when somebody pushes the button and walks out there. And we got pricing on it, and we can probably get it for right about 15,000.
So we're talking about a short street.
We're talking about a short street. And then if we see that they're gonna work productively, then we can continue on.
So we can skip down to the bridge, right?
Yes.
Because everything else is 2019.
Yes.
All right, so I'm just gonna say you're gonna have to make the
Okay.
case for me on this.
So let me sell you on this one. So we had the insurance guy come out that told us that the skate park needed to come down, so we took it down. If we do not do this bridge this year, we have to put a secure fence, which means a permanent fence around the spillway that people can't walk across it. We also had donations back in 2013, $5,000 was donated to this purpose. The tree committee is the one that made us aware of it. I forwarded it to Colleen today when I got the information. The tree committee has actually wrote a letter as well on this, and this is also something that I feel is a great need for the community.
Yeah.
And we've also paid an insurance claim for somebody getting injured going across there. And on a daily is just like going out and watching the traffic. You can go out there and sit in Ellis Pond, even though it says don't cross, even though there's a guardrail there, people will still take the shortest path, which is from A to B.
What kind of bridge are we talking about?
We're talking about, it'll be a wood bridge with concrete pillars on the ground. It have steel going across for the beams, and then they'll build a wood deck. It'll be large enough, it'll be 80 inches wide, to where you can get mowers across it, you can get a golf cart across it, you can get a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair across it. There will be no steps, it'll be just a ramp going across the spillway.
And is 30 enough to do the one over the spillway?
30 is enough to do the one over the spillway, and if I had 36,000, I could do that one plus the little bridge that goes over the little creek that has 2x10s right there now, is the price that I've got. And this is through Greene County. They have this company doing all their parks and stuff through Greene County right now.
Wait, this is Greene County Parks and Trails?
No, this is the price from their contractor. They have a contractor out of Cleveland right now that is giving us a price that, because we're in the area and we called him, he said we can do it for this amount, so.
Well, I'd like to go on record, I guess, as supporting both the bridge over the spillway and the other 6,000. I walk over the spillway. I mean, everyone does, but staff is putting a lot of work into Ellis Pond to make it more usable, more family-friendly, and it's a wonderful place. And I think a bridge over the spillway will really add a lot, enable people easily to do that circle, that's important. A recreation, more accessible. And the last time this was talked about 5 years ago, it was gonna be 60,000, I
Correct.
think. So it's only half.
Say.
No, I mean,
Good deal.
it seems like a lot of money, but I think that site is worth.
I don't think it's a lot of money for a solid bridge. I guess part of the making the case to me is I'm encouraged that there's been a 5,000 donation. I think we should reach out to John Dobney and see if we can.
I'm already on it.
Okay, and see if we can get a little bit of that parks levy. You know, especially, you know, since that is something that our community supports, and
Correct.
that brings in $1 million for parks a year. But yeah, I'm not opposed, and, you know, I think it's a great
And-
project.
And we actually took John Dobney out there. He's actually been there. He thinks it's awesome. He thinks we ought to clean up some of the dead trees that's falling into it. But he's the one that turned us on to the vendor. And I will say that Greene County Parks and Trails just donated $15,000 for the skate ramp down to the skate park.
Wow,
So that's going to be done this year as well.
awesome. Cool. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I just want to keep in mind that they've got a healthy fund. So, all right, cool.
Does it say, I'm sorry, does it say 30,000 twice there?
It does. The second 30,000 would be what Brian says is a want, not a need. So if we wanted to create another space in the back, there's an island out back, and we could take another bridge from there. We could put a gazebo in the island to where you could have different events or wedding or something out there. But that's a want.
Right. And something we can talk about next
It
year.
is,
Yeah, yeah.
correct. We can maybe get funding as well for
Yep.
that.
Cool.
So are we suggesting that 30 for 2020 should be 36?
Yes.
I
Yes.
suggested that. Well, he did, and I
Mm-hmm.
supported that.
Yeah.
So you're saying
I
that?
agree. I mean, we can't have another injury there. That was horrible.
The front shelter house will have a new roof put on it this year as well. That roof has actually got a hole in it, and so we want to match the back shelter house that we did, and put a new metal roof on the front shelter house and clean it up. These are what we put in last year, that we felt that we needed, and Brian, I do have the information that you asked for. I got it in my folder. It's a long list, but the short of it is we do not receive anything from the schools, but the softball did make money that the village ran this year.
How much?
I don't know for sure. I haven't even looked at all of it, but she did tell me. It wasn't a whole bunch, but we did make some. And the year before, we did not make.
So tell us a little bit about what those 3 items.
Okay, so the softball, they do not have dugouts at all, so they gotta walk all the way around the fence and come out. So this will be a cut through to make it like the baseball dugouts and have actual benches for the players with their own dugout. And then the Musco lighting needs repaired out there. We took a lightning shot out there, so we have a bunch of lights that are out at this time. Musco is not something that you can just go buy a lamp out of the store. You gotta actually, Musco's a design lamp that's, a sports lamp that's designed at a perfect degree angle. So we allocated $6,000 for that. The drive apron is absolutely chunked. It's terrible. And actually, I'm gonna have to work on getting good quotes, because the first one I got's $9,600, but he was also taking out the sidewalk that is right there to it. But I think we can get it done for that. Because it's actually 32 feet wide is what the driveway approach is.
Have we had a conversation with the school board about just sharing costs on some of this, the gaunt expenses?
We have not had one with the school board. We did have one with the AD, which he was not acceptive at the time. It was the old AD. We spend a lot of manpower getting the fields ready for the school sports. This is a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend in labor and equipment-wise.
Well, I mean, that makes a good business case though, right? To come up with a total cost that bundles human resources and this and say, hey, look.
Correct.
Yes, and Johnny is working on all those numbers, on the total cost and contributions we make to the schools. And we will be requesting a meeting with the school board and its superintendent and ask
Excellent.
for a contribution.
Thank you.
But I also think, the softball league folks have the capacity to generate revenue, whether it's a GoFundMe or whatever. So I think we need to fix the lights. The drive apron makes sense. I don't support the dugouts unless, I think that actually should be something that the users come up with. So, and I also want to think about this maintenance thing, because I think there should be shared costs there too. But I guess I would advocate for not supporting the dugouts until we get some support from the schools and from the softball folks.
No, well, we leave it in there, but we must get support from the schools and the softball. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's approved.
Ben Cooper, he's the one that's pushed for, all the work that we've done, so it's time for them to step up.
Mhm. Around there with the dugouts and which one?
That's shared cost.
I think we need to fix the lights, and I agree the drive apron. Especially if we're thinking about things like a dog park out there,
Right.
and then the pools and everything,
For
so that's,
safety.
yeah. So I think those those to me are musts. Dugouts would be great, but, I think this is the time.
Well, we did fix the baseball diamond ones, last year.
Right.
And this is just to make the softball ones, make it safer for the kids. So, but I agree that they need to be shared cost. That's same as the insulated roof for the Quonset hut. This is for the upstairs bathroom at the Bryan Center, and then the downstairs, depending on which ones we want to do first. They are in severe need of getting redone. I think the upstairs probably more than the downstairs because the tile and all the doors and the stalls are coming loose and everything else. So that's for both bathrooms, male, female, and then male, female, and the other. LED lighting is just buying more lamps for the Bryan Center, so during the bad weather days, my line guys can come in here and change them out. And they can do them, they're doing them case at a time, so. See, the meteor car, that last year, if you remember, that was a water vehicle, a water van. We actually switched that because the water van's not the most important, the meteor car is the important one. And we would like to look at an electric style Polaris to handle the meter reading versus having a gas. So
Okay.
they would have an electric cart, street legal, have a utility bed on it, because eventually they will be doing other things other than meter reading, if we can find the funds available. But that way they can do the GISing and the locating. We would keep a vehicle available for them and due to bad weather. But these are electric, straight electric vehicles that we would be able to purchase for the meter readers, and be able to be labeled for the village. The other thing it would be able to do is be able to help out during events, instead of renting vehicles for the police to be able to get from point A to point B with cruisers and stuff. We would be able to let them use the electric vehicles to be able to get from point A to point B. GIS mapping's ongoing, water and electric. There's gonna be more, and the electric shared the fund, or the water took most of the fund this year, but electric's got some more that they gotta do as well next year. There's the biggie. If anybody's not been out at Sutton Farm lately, we built a new barn 3 years ago. We are max capacity, but the problem is the old barn, it will cost more to fix it than it would be to tear it down and build a new one.
And I think you made the case for this last time.
I did.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I think,
Lisa wasn't here. and-
yeah, unless Lisa has any
Okay.
questions, but gotta protect
Okay.
our equipment, so.
Ally, again, Ally shared, and then once I think we get this next round done, then we'll be able to go down to just a maintenance, to be able to make sure, and that's probably more than enough to do maintenance. We can probably do some other stuff with that. Pole change outs, I wanted to increase that this year because there's some more directional boring on some smaller circuits. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to do some pole change outs and put some things underground, versus buying a directional bore machine. Right now, I don't have the manpower or the staff. I'd love to have it, but we tested one out at the farm and it took a lot of time for staff to do it. This way I can have somebody come in and shoot it. Staff can come back and finish it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other side note here is the electric fund is still relatively healthy. And
Correct.
so shifting into capital to get some of this stuff done sooner rather than later
Correct.
makes sense to me.
And if I need to, here's what I'd say. So we've not sat down since we've been here, and we've done a lot of stuff, and we keep pushing the guys to do more and do more, and they're great public staff, can't say no more, I can't say anything bad about them. But if we do more, then we're gonna have to contract it out, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But we'll be contracting out to larger stuff like the directional board. So if I see that we need more, then I would rather come back and say, hey, I want to do this project and maybe do it as a supplemental versus plan for it now and it not be happening. And then you guys come back and say, what the heck? You didn't get what you needed done. Because that's one thing is we focused on is trying to make sure that we spend every dollar correctly and got everything done that we said we was going to get done this year.
Right.
So we increased it a little bit, but if we need to and we see another area like we had on Orton and all that, then we'll come back and get that done. LED street lighting, we have 20 left out of our stock that we ordered a year ago, so we'd like to reorder another pallet to where we can keep changing them out as they go bad. The ones that we put in 2011 are past their warranty and probably not the best ones. So we're changing out to an LED that comes straight down and actually changing the height from in the neighborhood of 30 foot down to about 25 foot. So it gets it down closer to the ground. Replacement cutouts, that's ongoing. That's just replacements. They're $100 a piece, 125, I think, is the actual cost. And then, so we want to keep on changing them out from the porcelain to the poly. Blacktop roller, we're going to share that cost with the street department, the water department, anything that can be dug up in the street, share that. We've been borrowing the townships, but there's multiple townships borrowing multiple townships. And so we get one, we can actually, if they need to borrow it, we can actually let them borrow it as well. But we have a need for one, because when we need it, it's not available. So we've had to rent one twice this year so we can get some patching done. Shared cost for the roof again, Colleen. That's the meter car as well, the electric vehicle, GIS mapping, broken valves. We actually, we spent every bit of what we had this year, so we're looking to do some more. We're actually putting inserter valves in, so when we do the next section of unidirectional flushing, we know we'll get actually good shutdowns down. We actually did it this year on areas that we knew that we'd already broke a valve, so we had to have it dug up, had to have the old one cut out, had a new one put in. Hydrant replacement, we did one on Phillips and Limestone this year, and we're planning on, we was only able to get one done because we had to actually take out part of the main, because we wound up, when we dug down, we found a joint that we didn't like. This is an added one. So this year we, with the well monitoring, we was gonna try to get one well dug. But we changed strategy. We're having them all GIS'd to where we know exactly where it is, all three of them. The guy that we had come out and look at it, he says he can get them all done for about $8,000 to $9,000 if we do them all at one time. So we wanna put $10,000 in to drill all three future test wells, which is closer to the Morris Bean site, get them drilled this coming year so we can start testing at them locations. So what I did is, you'll notice the 225 has changed. Instead of adding that, I dropped that placeholder there for the water towers. Once we get them inspected and see what we're actually doing, I just decreased it by $10,000 so we can at least get the monitoring wells done. We've allocated that money to get that done. Then we can test and see what our water towers, if we're gonna need to paint them this year, if we're gonna have more time to be able to wait on. Camera work, that's ongoing. We actually got camera work coming in Thanksgiving weekend. They're gonna start cameraing our sewer lines for those sewer liners. So we wanna add costs for next year. Raising manholes, they just did the last one this year, today, and we've got some slated for the next couple of years. Sewer line, I'm gonna try to get some of it doubled next year, because we're starting so late this year. I wanna be able to get a bigger jump on it next year. We also met with RCAP, Josue, myself, Brad Alt, and Tanner Bussey. They're the ones that did the CMON study back in 2012. He come in and he gave us his best educated guess on where we should start. And downtown was number one. And then going over to Northwood and all that is where they feel that the biggest infiltration is. So that's what pattern we're gonna go by the expert that was here in town doing the work, and that's what area. He thinks the majority of our problem is downtown on 68 and Corey, Glen Street, Short Street, all that. So that's where we're gonna start cameraing first.
They're also going to send us a list of recommendations around policies and ordinance so that we can put in the policies and procedures to support our work. So one of them that we talked about is removing the sump pumps from the sewer system. It's an easy one, seems very logical, but we need the ordinance and the framework to make that happen.
He said something that was, one sump pump is equal to 9, was that right? 9 houses
Wow.
Yes,
on sewer,
yes.
just one sump pump. So if we have one sump pump, if we eliminate one, we increase 9. You know, so that was pretty amazing that, you know, that he told us that. I was like,
Right,
wow.
right.
So, Rich, I need to come check, see if yours is in there. This is to replace the jetter that is bad, the small one. These are for the backyard ones that we cannot get our big truck to. The one that we have now has been broke since probably 2015. It's set in the shop. We've had it looked at, and it costs more to repair it than it would be to buy a brand new one and put that one on Gov Deals. So we can buy a brand new one and just offload the other one to somebody that needs parts. Lift station pump, this is for the replacement of a 50 horsepower motor. They are actually starting the 20 horsepower the week of Thanksgiving. And then he's already got prices for 2020 to be able to start on that 50 horsepower motor. Sludge press, that is, we have a price for right now for engineering, $36,000 just for the engineering to see what it would cost, to see if it's even gonna be worth it and moving forward. So, and then the other money would be allocated for the other stuff on that, to see.
So why do we need a sludge press?
Well, we want to see if it's feasible, if it's necessary to be able to start hauling it out to a landfill, to see if we have to make an alternative if something doesn't go right with where we're taking it at this time. So, and the other thing is we could haul it out dry if we had a press for ourselves.
So there's two parts to that. One is, we're currently using a provider that is going through some zoning issues. So that would, if they are not successful in their challenge, it will create an additional financial cost for us to now find a new vendor that would take our sludge, that it's heavy in water to transport, and there may be some increase in fees and transportation costs in dealing with the sludge. The sludge press allows us to remove water from our sludge. So if you think of, you guys been out to the waste treatment? It's a lot of water in that sludge. The sludge press allows us to extract that water and create it a solid, which then managing that solid is much easier than the sludge. So reduce our fees and transportation cost. So there's a cost-benefit analysis that goes into this evaluation process to figure out, does it make sense for us, given our physical infrastructure, to put in a sludge press, and what is the potential savings for us to being able to have one and reducing the water in our sludge. Did I miss anything?
Even with the current scenario, that would equate to cost savings, right?
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, even if we were still going down-
Fairborn
you would
went
have
from
less
hauling
water.
out like we're doing now, and they actually installed a press, and they're actually taking theirs to the landfill to save money.
So why do we need to put in 75 for next year? Why can't we just put in the engineering cost?
For this year,
For 2020?
we can. We was gonna see, we didn't know how much the engineering was when we actually got it, but, we got the price back, and it's almost, I think it's 37, right at 37,000.
I mean, I guess I'd rather budget that because
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna have to totally change gears in 2020, right? I mean, that would be, but being ready.
Being ready, correct. We at least gotta do the engineering.
Right.
To see in the study.
Okay.
Yep.
237.
37.5 or whatever.
37, 238? Because it's
Well,
lower
if we
37.
put in the 75,000, would we be able to get the sludge press?
No, not for 75,000.
I mean, would we borrow and then pay back, or?
I would think so, yes. It's really gonna come down to, what the engineer comes up with, if it's feasible, or if we just need to figure out what we gotta do.
Okay, so
So
there's
I
a,
think if we budget 40, I think it's 37, but I'd have to look at the quote. Yeah.
why wouldn't we be able to do it?
Well, if, I really want to wait for the engineering to tell us, because number one is, it may have to have a new building built out there on the actual facility. We don't know if we're gonna be able to reuse one of the other buildings to be able to house this. So I would hate to tell you that we can do it, and then come back with a $3 million bill and say, hey, by the way, we can do it, you know?
For $3
So-
million.
Right,
All right.
so. Last one's the ADA. Do you want to take this one, or you want me to take it?
Sure, sure.
I'll help you.
All right, help me, because there may be some politics involved.
Yes.
We did a thorough walkthrough of the 2 bathrooms at the library today. We walked with Carl and with his architect, and looking at the structural elements and the feasibility of putting an ADA bathroom. Right now, given the glazed block that's on there, it makes it very challenging to do any work that retains the unique characteristics of the bathrooms, which the library has expressed that they want to preserve those historical elements of those bathrooms, the flooring, the type of tile on the wall. Based on how the plumbing in the 2 bathrooms and the thickness of those walls make it very challenging to stay under that $75,000 figure and bring that bathroom into compliance. There are a lot of unknowns. We wouldn't know how feasible it is to move the plumbing on either the current toilet and the sink that's in there and the water fountain without breaking the wall. And once you break the wall, there's could be some surprises that could drive the cost significantly. So the best option is a full demo and rebuild, because that would allow us to rebuild the walls in the way that that can be upgraded in the future. If 20 years down the road, we need to make some adjustment to make the bathroom compliant with new standards, we will be able to do that, because we don't have 8 inches of block to deal with. We'll have a new reframe wall. So that's the challenge that we're facing now. We have to make the decision. Well, if we want to move forward with this 2020 plan, we have to make a decision on, do we prefer a full demo and rebuild to new standards, or trying to work within the confinement of the design of the space?
Well, it's only one bathroom
Yes,
that's going to be made into ADA.
Correct.
And I toured the whole thing,
Yeah.
too. I don't particularly support doing a whole demo for $75,000.
Well, if you did the
It
demo,
will be cheaper to demo it
Yes.
than if we want to try to keep some of the existing, we need more money, because it's going to be more than 75,000.
To pull out the water fountain and put in a wider
Well, that water
door?
fountain is backed up by a 2-foot block wall. So that whole wall's got to be moved about 8 to 10 inches out. The water, and we don't know what's in that block wall. It could be a plumbing chase. And the only way we can do it is to bust a block out above the ceiling, above the ductwork, to see if there's actually anything in that wall.
Is it on a slab?
It is on a slab. I'm as shocked as you are, somewhat, but this is the reason why it's not been done since the 1990s, when the ADA come into effect. It's only a matter of time when we will have to do it, because it's just gonna take one complaint,
What's the library share?
none. The library is sharing on the engineering cost. For this project, engineering's $20,000, because they're gonna do their break room engineering at the same time, but the cost for the bathrooms is about $12,000 on the engineering. Now, one thing that they did want new fixtures in the other bathroom, and we told them that the other ones are in good condition, we're just want to keep
So
those.
this is $75,000
For
for
one.
one bathroom,
For one
ADA
ADA
bathroom.
bathroom.
We
And the
can-
reason being is because it's not drywall and wood studs. These bathrooms are, smallest wall's 18 inches thick concrete block with 4-inch glazed tile on one side, 4-inch glazed tile on the other side.
Built to last.
Terrazzo flooring. And you have to have between the sink and the toilet, you need 5-foot turning radius. Nothing can be in that area. That's the reason why the drinking fountain's gotta be moved out 8 inches, is to get that 5 inches, or that
5
5
feet.
foot.
Yeah.
So then, we talked about taking the drinking fountain down and putting it in the kitchen, but now you're talking about saw cutting up the floor on the concrete in the break room and remodeling the break room at the same time, which is more, so we're trying to bump out the water fountain.
Is there any way to add on a ADA bathroom to the building?
No. There is a space where they got the break room, but I can tell you, for being in the construction for a long time, this is the cheapest. This is actually the 4th time I've been down there, looked at it. We actually was on a ladder today, because I was wanting to get up into the ceiling to see what was in that chase and block wall on both sides. And on the other side of it is our heater system, which there's 5 heaters right behind it, which is gonna make it even more difficult with all the ductwork coming across.
So what happens if we don't, so is the demo plan the one that doesn't preserve the,
The demo plan does not preserve anything in the bathroom. It's all brand-new construction.
and that brings it down how much?
It brings it down to, we can get it into 75.
It was 135.
It was 135.
Well, it will bring it
It
down lower.
was
It will bring it lower.
270,
It'll bring
and
it
then it
down
wa-
lower.
Right.
And
We're-
what does the Greene County Library, levy support?
The Greene County Library is responsible for anything inside the building as far as maintenance or the outside sidewalks and this and that.
Yeah, and there's some tenant improvements that they would do, such as building out this break room, that would fall under their
Correct.
responsibilities. Which this is a good segue to put a pin on a pending task. Through this process, as reviewing the roles and responsibilities of us as the landlord and the library as a tenant, we pulled up our lease agreement and it turns out to be expired. So we'll bring that conversation back to council on renewing the lease agreement.
All right, well, I think we gotta move on, but I still have a question mark about this one. I mean, I think it's important. That seems,
Yeah, I mean, there does
It's a
need to
lot.
be an ADA.
sure. I mean, so that I think is a priority, I guess. For me, this falls into that cost-sharing area. I mean, our community, you know, I don't know. It just seems like between the levy, between the community foundation, I don't know. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, if we did the full demo and new build, we can get that number lower and look for ways to keep it at 50 or under.
Well, that would be,
That would be with us, and which we said today, that was with us GC in it,
Yes.
making sure that we have different subs. We feel that we can get it under the 50,
Oh,
but we don't want to tell you that, so to
Okay.
speak, and then all of a sudden so that's the reason why we left it at the 75. But that means that our staff is going to be doing the GC and making sure that the primes are doing theirs and the scheduling and this and that. And with us going out for the pricing and the quotes and finding.
With individual bids, so we'll get a plumber to do plumbing, demo to do demo, and the others do different pieces.
okay. that
Do it under
sounds-
maintenance and repair.
Mhm.
well, let's explore that
Okay.
if we can.
So for, in terms of a number,
Yeah, I think we would feel much better about 50. So,
But are you at 75 because of some of the concerns or some of the
Yes.
unknowns?
Yes.
there's some unknowns.
I feel good with 50, but I feel a lot better with 75 because I was up in the ceiling today, and it's solid block.
Well,
So-
I trust that you would do it for whatever the best
Absolutely.
price and
I would
best
love to
job.
come back and tell you that I got it done for 25,000,
We would love it too.
because we get more sidewalks done.
We get more sidewalks, more sidewalks.
All right, thanks, Johnny.
All right.
Thank you,
There's-
Johnny.
Thanks, Colleen.
Sit on the Capitol.
All right, there's one more item to follow up on. There's a request as to where do some of the costs go. At the last council session, there was a request to break out some of the expenses, so this chart breaks out that enterprise expense. So I'll make the quick change for you. This was the chart that was presented at the last council session. It showed that electric operating fund constituted 59% of the expenses. So if you want to see a breakout at that 59%, just click this little button and it breaks it out. So you'll see that contractual services makes the bulk of that expense at 3.7 million, followed by the transfers, then the personnel expenses, which includes the wages and other personnel expenses like benefits.
I'd like to have those pie chart things.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like you to send them to all.
Yes,
council.
we'll send it to you. We can send this spreadsheet too, and then you could manipulate the figures. So if you wanted to see where,
And I think that for an end-of-the-year report of the village, that this kind of thing would be.
we could make that happen. So I'll share this Excel sheet. So the Excel sheet is set up that if you wanted to see the breakout, say, of sewer operating funds, you just click on that and it breaks out that pie and you can see that expense. We've done the same thing for the general fund. So the
Nice.
general fund, so, let's say you wanted to look at what that public safety breakout is, you just hit the little plus sign and it breaks out the public safety expenses. You'll see that 153,000 are contractual services, 1.3 million is personnel services.
We could have this on the website.
Yes, there'll be some technical things to work through to make it clickable, but the fixed pie charts could be on there.
I think the
But-
fixed pie charts,
Yes.
yeah,
But being able to manipulate it as we have here, that would.
is nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Any questions on these two items?
Okay. Anything else about capital budget at this point? Okay, so Josue, I think the last old business item is the, Justice System Managers Advisory Board.
Okay, thank you. All right, in the report, I included a memo on this. In consideration of time, I'll get straight to what we're proposing. We want to establish the Justice System Advisory Board housed under the Office of the Village Manager, and that's to accomplish the goals that we discussed at previous council session. That's to incorporate select recommendations from the 2019 police assessment, implement select recommendations from the Justice System Task Force final report, and this advisory board will also provide insight, capacity, and operational support related to the administration's work on executing 4 initiatives, which we discussed previously. The memberships include 5 to 7 members, 2 ex officios, that's the police chief and the village manager. The goals are outcome focused and require community members who are constructive, collaborative, and results-oriented. Members should have expertise in one or more of the following domains: community development, police practices, mediation, restorative justice practices, occupational health, community health, and public safety. All committee members serve at the pleasure of the village manager. More specifically, the advisory will work on the following initiatives. And I included the 4 initiatives that we discussed at previous council session. And the reporting, we expect to keep minutes and publicize all meetings, and include any recommendations to come before council for final approval of policies and legislative recommendations. So the following are proposed next steps. That's to finalize a statement of function to establish the system the Justice System Advisory Board. I commit to delivering that statement of function by the end of the month, November 31st. Also, we'll recruit candidates and make recommendations for council for the appointment of said candidates. We'd also like to coordinate a public meeting, a community meeting, to follow up to the Community Policing Forum and to present this proposal moving forward. This will be the statement of function and this timeline that we discussed. Given the schedule for the end of the year, we want to put this for November 14th, get it out to the public, get some comment, and start the initial dialogue.
Do you mean November or December?
November 14th.
So you mean the
That's-
30th, the
10
30th,
days.
there's no 31st.
Well, wait a minute, that's prior to finalizing the statement of.
Right, so
He's doing it
the
before.
statement would have input from the community, so part of the process will be to have this meeting on the 14th and collect some feedback on the statement. Then we've collected some feedback to bring forward a finalized statement.
I think it would be better to bring it to council on the 18th and then have this meeting
The draft?
after.
Okay,
I feel better about us seeing it and then bringing it to a larger meeting.
okay.
Is this in lieu of the Justice System Commission? What's the?
This
Yes,
This
this
is in lieu
is-
of. So no council
least-
member on this group?
Well, the 1 to 5, 7 members can include a council member.
And
Any thoughts?
I did say that I would be willing to be
Yes.
that council member. The other thing is, where would the advisory board be meeting?
It would meet here in the art room.
Okay, so a venue that's big enough that if we did have other people that wanted to attend.
Yes, we can also make rooms A and B, reserve those rooms for a larger audience.
Because, yeah, I appreciate that this reflects that we said that we announced these meetings and that they would be open to the public. Okay.
And you want to change your due dates? You're showing November 31st?
Yes, for the finalized, but given this timeline, you want to see it on the 18th before it goes out to public, so I can bring the draft on the 18th.
Right,
which
but I'm
is the
good with
next
that
council.
sequence of events. I'm just saying
Okay.
there's no November 31st.
Oh.
So you want the 30th?
The 30th, whatever the end of the month is.
So then when would you be thinking of having the community meeting?
I will have to look at another date. The following week is will be challenging
having-
to schedule because we have our Environmental Commission public meeting. And then the following
Yes.
week is Thanksgiving, so we're now bumping into the beginning of December.
I know.
As you come up with those dates, I would ask that you let us know, not waiting till the next council meeting, to increase the opportunity. I'll speak for myself, that I can attend the community meeting.
I think it's important to really have enough time that people know that this is happening. And I suggest we might consider waiting until this January.
Well, I mean, I think in general, I appreciate, Brian, your willingness to do this, but I feel like, as I recall, a couple years ago, when we had a new council, we sat down and we figured out who was going to serve which commissions.
Sure.
And I mean, I would suggest that that might be a good thing to do with
Yep.
this one, too.
Yep. And any reason why later in the week of the 18th, we couldn't have that community meeting?
We're having a meeting on the 21st about Vernay.
Right.
I mean, if we really want people to come to meetings, having 2 public meetings
In a
in
week.
1 week, and then doing it right around the holidays, even, that's why I think it would be better to wait until January to have the community meeting regarding the police, and start letting people know the date ahead of time, so that we don't have a lot of people saying, I didn't know about this.
Well, we definitely want to let them know ahead of time. So I guess I was just trying to figure out if we could figure out, well, let's figure out a date at the next meeting, when we
Okay.
look at the draft statement of function,
Okay.
which I think we almost have anyway.
Right,
so.
it's, a lot of this, it's already included here.
Okay. All right, but I appreciate, Lisa, what you said about, as we're reconfiguring for next year, that, if somebody else feels like they're in a better position. Okay, I think it looks great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so let's move into new business and,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did you move the deadline then for people to be signing up to be on this, or for recruitment,
Well, we're bringing in the draft on the 18th
Yes.
for your review.
right?
So we can recruit if that's, I think we can start recruiting, thinking of individuals now. Maybe I'll have a list of names or potential candidates by the next council session on the 18th, but I think that independent of,
I guess since we're moving things back a bit, we could also move that date back, 30th back. Of course, that is still a fair amount of time, but, I mean, it doesn't give people a lot of time to find out about it.
we find out about it. Okay, so we can push it to sometime mid-December, or end of December. End of December? Okay.
And I have a couple names for you, remind
Okay.
me. Okay, anything else? All right, new business. So, we've got an, RFQ for legal services. Sway, are you talking about this as well?
Yes. This is a proposed draft for the RFQ for the village solicitor. Part of this RFQs is also to start a conversation around how we work with this solicitor for distribution of tasks and providing that consultancy role for the village council and the village staff. So I want you to think about that as I go through the list of services to collect your feedback to ensure that we're capturing all of our needs. Do you want me to read any particular parts or just jump into the scope of services?
Let me suggest an alternative approach.
Okay.
I have a couple comments, and if any other council members have comments, let's throw them out there, and
Okay.
then maybe just given where we're at,
Time-wise?
yeah, maybe we don't go totally in depth, and we try to finalize this for the next meeting. So, okay, so my three comments are, maybe we want to include asking for salary requirements.
So we thought about, do you want to go through your first comments and I give you
You can
responses? or one
respond
by
to that.
Okay, so we thought about doing a fee schedule, requesting their fee schedule, whether for we want to push this towards a retainer model.
Uh-huh.
One of the concerns I had was that folks may respond to the RFQ as it is, and that could open a conversation around negotiating the services and the pricing.
Mhm.
So that was my concern with the fee schedule, that we may get a hourly rate or a retainer rate, and we may not have all the room to negotiate within those figures.
Okay.
So if we ask for complete responses, we can engage and have negotiation around the fees.
Okay. Based on what we said about where we use legal services, I thought Denise, our zoning administrator, should be on the committee.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wondered if we wanted to put an option in for was potentially the prosecutor thing. So again, like an additional, I mean, I don't exactly know what the term is, but, kind of like not a requirement, but we're also potentially looking for this.
There is language I found language that we can put in that would make that individual step into the municipal prosecutor role as defined by zoning and other policies and ordinances that we have.
Mhm.
So that if we wanted to bring a case before mayor's court where we required to have a municipal prosecutor or village solicitor could step into that role.
So maybe we add something like background in prosecution, crim law, would be a good thing.
Okay.
However you say
I
that.
agree. That was my one.
Okay.
And
Point two.
being a municipal prosecutor.
Right.
Mhm.
Other comments?
Well, it did, when mentioned who this person would be, services would be for. It didn't include the mayor, as I recall, so. Not I'm not, I don't, regardless of whether it was as a prosecutor or not, it seems like there are times, I think, that the mayor probably needs legal.
Yep,
And with regards to mayor's court and,
right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, that's a good point. Anything else?
No, I was just concerned about the point you just covered about the fee schedule in lieu of what we've budgeted for this work. And just, again, just making an opportunity for that discussion about what the actual cost might be.
Right, yeah, and thinking about the fee schedule, we know the total water ceiling is. And if we put out that ceiling number, I think folks are gonna.
Let's hit that.
Right, they're just gonna hit that and may leave little room for us to negotiate on things to get us down to that figure. So that was one of the concerns I had.
Okay. So then the other thing we had talked about is that, having a separate RFQ for our outside legal services. So I know there was a lot of work to get this packet done, but I just don't want to forget that
Right,
as well.
Right, and I think this process, because it's so open-ended around the scope of services, that we may find someone that may be suitable just for those à la carte research service special projects as well. So the scope of services are quite broad, and it could leave the door open to negotiate with one on a retainer basis and negotiate with another on those special projects. On those special projects, would there be something in addition to the scope of service that you would like to see?
I mean, as long as, at this point, it's about expertise in municipal law, so it's hard for me to say. I see some upcoming things, like, you know, the outcomes with Vernay and that sort of thing that I think are specialized. But you know, it's hard for me to think about all of those in a way that we put it into the RFQ. So, I mean, maybe one thing we say is that we are open to responses from firms or individuals, something like that. That might open.
There's some of that in there. I think that it can make a stronger case. We said, you know, and the documentation that's expected, provide the individual's resume or the firm's background.
Yep.
Do we have the RFQ or P or whatever it was when we put it out the last time?
So this one is modeled after a similar document. We expanded the scope of work, and we added some additional language in different areas. For example, the submission process was all paper-based, and it required seven certified original copies. I moved this process to
More or
online.
less the same document.
This looked very familiar to the one from before to me, so.
And we also added a pre-bidders conference to allow us to call the meeting and have various interested parties hear the presentation, hear the same presentation, and we can provide for a Q&A. So things that may not be answered through the RFQ, we can answer that in a pre-bidders conference.
Well, I just wanted to put out that when we had the agenda planning, to which you were not there
Right.
to attend, so it was Judy, Josue, and I. And one of the things that Judy brought up, and I can introduce it, and I can let her speak if she wants, but the protocol of how we use the attorney. So it's not just that we want our solicitor to do what we want our solicitor to do, but we have to have a protocol on how we request that information. Who requests it, what channels, and, I mean, Judy did a good job of talking about that, but I was wanting to figure out, well, what hasn't been happening that we want to have happen? Well, in that conversation, it seemed like some of that was our responsibility. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say, Judy, about that in this regard, but.
I don't know that it's something I can kind of capture as a whole piece. I would say that in every way, different departments and council, sort of as a unit, have to look at how do you use the solicitor and what channels do you go through? Are you able to directly contact the solicitor? But one thing that hasn't been happening that I think should, and it hasn't happened consistently, is that when someone brings any sort of proposal to council table, that it's vetted for legal cost. That, you know, and I believe that you did that when you brought the notion of having a CDC. That there was going to be an associated legal cost, but we don't always do that. It's hit or miss. And so I think.
Well, we are, I mean, you know, we have said that we should always do that. So,
Yes.
you know, that's one thing we need to all remind ourselves and be reminded of. But you're right, you know, we don't always ask that question. So I think that's a good point. I mean, I think we have tightened up in the sense that, you know, council members aren't just randomly calling.
That was
You
one
know,
of the things that was.
Right,
brought up.
and I think I feel like we've tightened that up pretty well. So, but, you know, that, I think it's a good point.
And
one
so
that-
this is an opportunity for us to look at what our protocol is going to be and have an agreement as we move this forward.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so anything else, you know, with the fact that we'll bring this back at the next meeting and drill down on any other specifics and then put it out there? Okay. All right. Okay, so I think, I guess we should make a decision since we're at almost 9:40. I think we should definitely talk about the 2 additional items that were put on the agenda. I'm wondering if tree care
Yeah,
could be
why don't we
pushed to
save
the
that?
next meeting.
Yeah,
Is that
let's
okay
do
with
that.
everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. So then, Lisa, Village Manager Personnel Committee.
Yeah, so I think this is new probably for all of council, because it's something that kind of popped up ad hoc. Based on the Hilliard Hines assessment, you know, kind of context, our council, the village manager, the police team recognized that there were opportunities for improvement in policies, and in particular in the personnel policy handbook. So, and I'm going to start because then I want Josue to chime in because a lot of this has to do with his scope of work as village manager. So the work had started on that personnel policy handbook, and then Chris Kennard, speaking of our legal counsel, brought to Josue's attention that some communities rely on an advisory personnel committee that engages community members in those hopefully rare situations where a personnel issue occurs and has to be investigated. So this can be a police-related issue, it isn't necessarily. So for example, anytime that village manager is in the process of working with a personnel issue and the person questions the findings, these kinds of committees exist that involve citizens and weigh in. And so their role, though, is really specific. This is incredibly different from the Citizen Advisory Board that we've talked about before, although it has in common that there are citizens, you know. But in these kinds of cases, the committee members participate to listen. They're neutral parties that are involved in fact-finding, but they don't get involved in discipline. So basically, they're just there to hear, you know, what's said by the people involved and document that and then hand it over to the staff who maintain their responsibility to handle personnel issues. So that was going on, I understand. And then, more recently, there's been a potential disciplinary matter that's come to the attention of Josue. And his thinking, I'll just speak for him here, in light of the Hilliard and Hines recommendations, he decided to consider the use of an informal process to incorporate the idea of what a personnel committee might do. So almost like pilot it, just try it out very informally. And so at that point, Josue contacted me and asked me to be involved, and also identified a few other ad hoc community participants. So I was the only council person involved. There were no other elected officials, but I agreed at that time that I would participate. So, and I'm not, it would be inappropriate for me to discuss the specific situation, because there's still an investigation. So I don't want to say anything about the people involved or the allegations, but I do want to make the point that all of the participants, both the community members and the employees of the village, voluntarily consented to piloting this activity. And that in so doing, no one waived any rights other than, like, our policies are our policies. But they agreed that they would be willing to try. But the current handbook stands. So, and also I want to say that the existence of this activity doesn't change anything about public records. The process was discreet because there was confidential information, but that doesn't make it secret. So, you know, because it happened, people can still do everything that they always did before. People's rights are all the same. And I'm really grateful, actually, particularly to the employees who agreed to participate, because I think that showed that they were willing to be part of a pilot process. And it was really very informal, and that our village manager and our team can learn from. So the goal is to explore a process that's tailored to the needs of the village, particularly in light of recent events and the consultant feedback. And my hope is that it might evolve.
Right.
And I hope that we can evolve it to also look at the Citizen Advisory Board, which, as you all know, is something that's been really important to me. I'd never really imagined that there would be a similar body that would look at internal human resources issues, but I understand now that that's not that uncommon. When the current process is complete, and it's not, my idea is that the process will be examined as a case study and brought to the council, you know, as a lessons learned, as a, this is what we learned about the experience, this is what could be handled better. My idea is that the employees that were part of the process would also be debriefed for, like, the lessons learned, like what was their experience of it, what worked, what didn't. And then any changes that would come out of it would be part of council decisions. It would be an open conversation to see how the process would evolve with Josue and Chief Carlson and us and the community as stakeholders. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this had happened and that this is happening. And, you know, again, really say thank you, because it happened quickly. It was time consuming in an important way. And Josue, do you have anything to add?
Lisa, I couldn't say anything else that you haven't already said. I appreciate and how you frame all of this and how encouraging you have been in this process and willing to jump in on this uncharted territory to find these new opportunities to manage with some of the internal personnel matters. And we've got sound recommendations to address this, and this is a way for us to get there, and I appreciate your willingness to help us get there.
I mean, and I just want to say one more thing, is that, you know, there's a lot of territory to navigate about confidentiality of participants and what does, you know, privacy and confidentiality mean as it relates to these human resources activities, and also that community members who participate in these activities are also putting themselves out there. You know, at this, they obviously had to agree to full confidentiality until the process is complete.
Correct.
You know, and we know that the community can have reactions to people who get involved in certain situations. So I really think that we're grateful to have both active community members as well as employees of the village who are willing to do this with us.
Right. And just to highlight that the employees volunteer for this process, And just want to highlight that they did not waive any rights available to them under our personnel manual. So it's a good way for us to try this process, find a process that works for the village in a safe manner.
And I just want to add, and then Megan, you know, from hearing more about this, that the having more transparency and more objectivity in these kinds of processes are, you know, part of what I'm hearing that I think are important. So as long as we're preserving confidentiality and protecting everyone's interests, I think that's important, and I think that's something the community wants. Megan?
Right, and while Megan approaches, I'll just add that, I mean, I think it's very important. I mean, if I think of myself as an employee, I want to protect, I would want my confidentiality and privacy to be, I wouldn't want my stuff out there, you know? So I think it's really important
So
that we find a way to make it confidential.
I'd like to ask, so what is the intersection of transparency and confidentiality and privacy?
So, gee, I wish I could remember this really clever thing when I used to be a HIPAA consultant. There was this thing about, you know, confidentiality as your drapes are open and you can see, and I can't remember. So for me, I think confidentiality has to do with the details of a situation that are part of a personnel issue. That it's not public information, it's private human resources. Privacy has to do more with the citizen side. You know, how are we going to deal with their privacy as they get involved with this so that they're involved appropriately? So I kind of see it that way.
So is it correct that both the employees and the citizens who have been involved in this pilot project agreed to confidentiality?
Yes,
so
they
that
all
they were
agreed.
going to
Yeah.
keep,
They did.
were they keeping both the fact that they were involved in a process? How much of the, I mean, so that,
So, clarify me on this, but my understanding as a participant was that anything I heard in this situation was 100% confidential.
everything
and
said in the room stays in the room.
Right, stayed in the room at this point. Now, my interest, though, was always knowing that we were going to be doing a debrief. That I wanted to, you know, make sure that there was a case study, that there were lessons learned. So of course, in that case study, we're not going to say, you know, we can't be we can't, you know.
Be
if it's-
process oriented.
Right, if it's confidential, we can't say what the situation was, but just what the process was. Yeah. Sorry, I'm Megan, I
So, and
just
I'll
kept
just say-
babbling away.
My answer to the question is that the intersection is fairness. So to me, confidentiality and transparency is about being fair to the participants and the community. And I think you can achieve that. Megan,
Sorry,
did you want
Megan,
to
I
ask
just kept babbling while you were
Oh, that's okay.
coming up.
Well, transparency was a big piece of the report that came out, and this is actually, to me, I see it as being not transparent, the opposite of transparency. So there's a current process that is governed by state law, the Ohio Sunshine Law, and Chapter 6, I encourage you to read it, and it says that investigations into employee behavior for public employees is subject to public records. So the public has a right to inspect those records. It might be different in the private sector, this is the public sector. So what I see that has been created is kind of a pre-disciplinary process that is in fact subverting the public's ability to access any information about the process, about what both sides are bringing. And I would request that that information be made public. I would ask that the people that are on this committee to be made public, and I would ask that the investigation into these employees be made public, because you're talking about privacy and confidentiality, the needs of the employees and of the village, but you're forgetting the public, and the public does have a role to play. So I would encourage you to read Chapter 6 of the Sunshine Manual.
I just want to respond to this. As far as I know, there is no documentation that exists that isn't public. There has been yet no report generated from the one conversation that we had with this group, and there will be, and that will be public. But it doesn't exist yet. So, you know, it's not even a work product that's in draft yet. So it will be public, but the notes don't exist yet. They haven't been produced.
And there's no evidence that's been produced from either side. So going through, it was my first time going through the investigation that happened earlier this year. Both sides were required to release their information, their evidence. So you've considered no physical evidence or taken no testimony, is what.
Right, so then there's already existing, the standard process was also followed. So that documentation exists of the standard process. I mean, am I correct in
You are correct.
understanding
You are
that? So
correct, yes.
this was a kind of an add-on to the standard process, and there will be documentation. So to clarify, Josue, if any kind of public records request would yield the same result, the same information
Correct,
as if
correct.
this hadn't been
Whatever,
attempted.
whatever information would be provided in this body would be what's publicly available.
And who's on the body as well, and their decision. So this, if you're saying
Well,
this is
there's no
analogous.
decision. There's no decision
Well,
that the
if
body's
this is
making.
analogous to the Clark County report, in the last investigation, there was an initial report done by an outside law agency. That became public record, and that was, the public could see the conclusions that this person came to and why they came to those conclusions. Then that started the pre-disciplinary conference and the rest of the process. So it seems like you're trying to do something different for that first step, but I would request that you keep the same transparency that's in our current process, and the report from these individuals, the names of these individuals, and how they came to their conclusions be also subject to public records.
I just do want to clarify, though, that my understanding of my role and the role of the others involved was not to come to any conclusions. It was just to listen
It's a
and
fact-finding.
document what we heard. Listen and document what we heard and hand it over. There's no conclusion and there's no recommendation. It's like listeners.
So you're fact-finding.
It's only listeners. So it is a little, it's different, but I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. I think it's not that different, though. And, you know, and I was part of an initial conversation as well, you know, so, I mean, to me, the one thing that's better is it's 3 citizens and a council member and a village manager.
I'm not in the meeting.
Oh, you're not
not
in,
in the room.
okay,
meeting,
sorry,
no.
I didn't know, okay, so, but it's more people, and that's why I mentioned about the objectivity, as opposed to one sheriff in another jurisdiction, or, you know, one internal person. But, yeah, I don't think that was made clear, but to make that clear, a report that those listeners, you know, all agree on will be signed off on. So that will all be public and transparent. So I guess different, but better, because I think there are more people in the room listening, and I think also people that, you know, we want our community to be involved, or I think that's what citizens want.
So, so yeah, I think the objectivity part is important. You know, I guess when Lisa first started presenting, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But, you know, so objectivity, I think, is a plus. I think we are in danger, you know, of creating some unintended consequences when we get not just more people in general, but an elected official, and then it could potentially get a little messy in that regard, so I think we just want to be careful. But in terms of objectivity, you know, it does sort of seem to have sort of a restorative justice type feel, you know, so there's a positive side, but I just think we need to be very careful that we don't make matters worse.
Thank you.
Were you gonna say something else, Marion?
Did our solicitor, did I hear right that he suggested the process?
So the solicitor came up with the process to, one, backtrack. He said, we want to do these things. How do we do them? So he reviewed the policy manual, what's within that framework, and identify which part of the process this falls under, and making sure that whatever we did fall within the current policy manual, and we're staying within the boundaries of our work and the law. In terms of the meeting itself, the village solicitor has been involved in those meetings. I am not participating in that meeting because I'm the one who has to act I'm the one who makes the decision that has to act. So I'm removed from that meeting and letting the group do the fact finding.
I mean,
So
my concern is Megan is saying that, at least it sounded to me like what she was saying, is that we were not going by the sunshine laws.
yeah,
That's what I was hearing.
Yeah, so I'm
But
going to follow up on
I'm-
that with our village solicitor
Okay.
to
Because so
get
far, from what
get
we
a legal-
know, we were okay with it.
Right, exactly. So, no, I'm going to follow up and get his professional opinion
And
directly
he was,
related to
he
this
was
question.
in the meeting.
Right.
And the structure of the meeting was modeled after other communities that have had these kinds of personnel committees. So there was a high degree of trust, but always an understanding that we would produce a report that was public, but it just doesn't exist.
Mhm.
It hasn't been time.
Mhm.
Certainly, we would never intentionally breach sunshine.
I'm not saying that you're breaching, sorry to clarify that. I'm not saying that you're actively breaching sunshine laws because there hasn't actually been a request. I think I tried to make somewhat of a request today, but it's more that the current process, it involves a public records, a public process, where there's the opportunity for the public to know what's happening and to see that whole process. So they can read the reports, they can see how things went one direction or another direction. This process doesn't have that, is outside of that, so it doesn't have those guarantees from what I can see. So if you're talking about transparency, my request would be that you treat that process as you would the disciplinary process. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks. And I think that is the intent, at least the way I understood it, but I think that wasn't all explained at the beginning. Okay, so one more new business item, the erosion of home rule.
Yeah.
Mary Ann.
Okay, so I picked this up on the Miami group of the Sierra Club, the legislative section, and there's a bill in the House Bill 242, which would diminish municipalities' ability, home rule ability, and it appears to be particularly targeted toward municipalities' ability to deal with things like putting a ban on plastic bags. That seems to be the particular target of it. And so the Sierra Club is recommending, is coming out against this House bill, and I am recommending that we pass a resolution coming out against it, and that we also contact our representatives. And just so you know, through the Environmental Commission, there has been discussion about, would we ban plastic bags? What would that look like? So far, that hasn't been done. Well, there has been talk with local businesses, but that hasn't been done. This would take away our right to be able to do anything like that.
Right. And then I think their bigger point is that here's one more, move by the state to take away the rights of local municipalities to.
Yeah, and I think that the fossil fuel industry is looking toward plastic as like, okay, we might need to stop producing as much gasoline for cars as they become electric, so let's start making more plastic.
All plastics.
That's right. Keep those fossil fuel subsidies going.
So, do people agree that
Yes.
you,
Yes.
okay, I will.
Seems
move
like
that
timing
along.
matters.
Right. And at this,
Timing.
at this point, we're just talking about don't take away our home rule, right? So, okay. Josue?
All right, I'll be as brief as I can be. We released a survey on the active transportation plan. As of Thursday, we received 280 responses. The survey will be available through November 23rd. I have included a paper copy of the survey in the packet. We've submitted our application for the municipal grant that cover the improvements to 2 parking lots. That report is also included in your packet. This includes pictures and the report itself. The Managers Advisory Board, we've met and made progress towards the Yellow Springs Housing Plan and the development of a conceptual design of the Glass Farm property. We will also be collaborating with the Comprehensive Land Use Plan Steering Committee. They've expressed interest in exploring this conceptual design for the Glass Farm and Kinney Farm. So the Housing Advisory Board will work with the consultants to develop this conceptual design that incorporates the housing needs assessment, the work of the advisory board, and meeting the housing goals. We've included the meeting minutes of, not September meeting, but the previous meeting, because the September meeting minutes have not been approved. Once those are approved, they will be included in the packet. The next item is the budget. We will be sharing that Excel sheet that can be manipulated. So if you wanted to play with, or not play with, but look at how much we're paying with wages across all the different funds, or look at professional services, all of that can be broken out in the sheet. Project updates, we've completed the bicycle lane from along Xenia Avenue from Allen Street to Barnum. Pictures are included in that. I think there's also some social media posts from community members recognizing the work of the team and appreciating that they're now able to get down to Dollar General and beyond.
And to the food forest.
And to the food forest. The second project update will have, work is underway to install the storm drain at Dayton and King Street. You might have seen correspondence on this issue that there's water and soil that blocks the ramp to that side of the street. This work will address that, and it will rebuild the curb and the ADA ramp. Police Department has requested to establish a police chaplain, to establish this program within the Police Department. This is a volunteer program which would add no cost to the Police Department or the village. The volunteer chaplains would assist officers and citizens at the scene of fatal events by, or for example, working with the next of kin and making arrangements. In Greene County, the coroner's office does not remove the deceased unless there's a pending investigation. This places our department in the position of having to stay on the scene until arrangements have been made. The police chaplains would assist our first responders by staying with a person who has passed and the grieving family. Police chaplains have become a critical component within the departments today. High-stress incidents required a multifunctional responding team. Grief counseling, stress management, and other logistical and operational support will be provided by this volunteer, which will greatly enhance our services to the public. I've attached the letter from the Police Chief Carlson to the packet. Any questions?
And I think, I don't know if I heard you say it, but we're not incurring any cost
Correct.
for this initiative.
Correct.
I just wanted to highlight 2 things. Seeing that hike bike path from Allen down to Dollar General made me really proud of our community. That's just great and so important for our folks that don't have cars. And then secondly, I just wanted to highlight that we're gonna add to that report to the county a narrative about the ROI and the community benefits.
Correct.
Okay.
The report that we send it is a very standard report that they requested. There isn't a whole lot of space for the narrative. We'll submit something as a supplemental. There's also a grant that there's not a competitive process, so there wasn't a grant application associated with it as part of their distribution of funds.
Right. Part of why we want to make the case is they've talked about doubling that amount.
Correct.
Next year.
Yes.
So.
And we have a good case to be made around our work.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Josue. Judy.
Really, I'm just going to say my biannual wish of good fortune to those of you who are seeking to return to council. And I'm just going to read this little bit. that serving the village as a council member requires vast patience, knowledge of many things, dedication, a collaborative spirit, the ability to stay up way past bedtime on Mondays, nerves of steel and skin of kryptonite. And anyone who can do all that and then ask permission to do it again deserves the vote.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, future agenda items. So we've talked about, we've got two things that we move forward, tree ordinance and more discussion about the RFQ for legal
RFQ.
services.
And the,
We're gonna have the resolution
the
to protect home rule.
justice,
Set a date for
Manager.
draft and statement of function.
Yep.
Oh, and I noticed in the minutes that there was some questions about the, community development and the budget from Economic Development Fund. It said something like Lisa will provide the details. I was like, oh, so we'll figure that out before the next
Yeah,
meeting.
well, the details were how much should we be transferring from
Right.
economic
I
development for
don't want
those?
to do that unilaterally, but maybe you and I could work on
Yeah.
that
Yep.
and think about that.
Yep, yep.
I just want to note that I did see that in my name in the minutes.
See? Yeah, I put it out there.
Thanks.
You're welcome. If it fits for next time, but I do want it to be a future agenda item, I want to talk about potentially selling our renewable energy credits as another revenue stream. A lot of municipalities do that, and it's, so I want to explore that.
Okay. One of the things that's on my radar is the renewal levy. So that may be a conversation for December 16th.
Good idea.
It'll be a renewal. We're not proposing any tax increases.
Actually, we may need to move that up, because
Yeah.
if we're planning to put it on in March,
So with December 2nd, or do you want to start the conversation on the 18th?
let's talk about that, maybe the 18th.
Okay.
So, and, do you know that exact date, Judy, in March for the,
Oh, when we have to get it into the.
yeah, I guess let's get that
Elections.
timeline, but I know, I know the next election's in March, so. Okay, anything else? All right, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
oh, I'd love to adjourn. I make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.